Platform, can you hear me?
Can you hear you, Mario?
Speakers, mate, can you hear me?
Yes, Mario.
Can hear everybody.
Recording in progress. Recording stopped. Recording in progress.
The Deputy Speaker.
There will now be silence for silent prayer or meditation. Thank you. You may be seated. Order, honourable members. Honourable members. Members, can we please have order so that we can proceed? Honourable members, you will recall that during questions to ministers in the governance cluster, question 178 to the minister in the presidency stood over in terms of rule 144 sub 1. This question will be taken out of the cluster today in terms of rule 138 sub 5 Consequently, an additional 30 minutes will be added to today's question time for this purpose as provided for in terms of Rule 1385B. Members, honourable members, this is very important because you will be asking this question if we proceed past 6 o'clock this evening, and that is the reason that I have just given, because the question has been taken out of the cluster and the 30 minutes will be added after we have concluded at 6 o'clock. We will now proceed to the questions to the ministers in Cluster 4 Economics. The only item on today's order paper is questions addressed to the ministers in Cluster 4. There are 4 supplementary questions on each question. Parties have given an indication of which questions their members wish to pose a supplementary question on, and adequate notice was given to parties for this purpose. And this is done to facilitate participation of members who are connecting to the sitting through the virtual platform. The members who will pose supplementary questions will be recognized by the presiding officer. In allocating opportunities for supplementary questions, the principle of fairness, among others, has been applied. If a member who is supposed to ask a supplementary question through the virtual platform is unable to do so due to technological difficulties, the party whip on duty will be allowed to ask the question on behalf of their member. When all the supplementary questions have been answered by the executive, we will then proceed to the next question on the order paper. The first question has been asked by the Honourable Makubela to the Minister of Finance. The question is about measures in place to ensure that the financial sector supports South Africa's productive capabilities of the state to drive inclusive economic growth. I have been informed that Dr. Masondu, the Deputy Minister, will be answering this question on behalf of the Minister. The Honourable Deputy Minister.
Good afternoon, Honorable Deputy Speaker and honorable members. The financial sector is a key component of a modern economy.
Deputy Minister, could you please just hold for a minute? I have a point of order from the floor from the Honourable Manye.
Thank you, Deputy Speaker. I think we had agreed last time that there'll be some kind of executive summary of the question itself, so that people that respond to questions don't just launch into a response with no base for what are they responding to. So we request you to do a quick summary of what was the original question. Thank you.
Thank you, Honourable Manye. I have in fact read that. That is how I started. I said what the question was about. Honourable members, that is why I ask that we please remain quiet so that we do listen to what is being said and that we don't waste unnecessary time. My apologies, Honourable Deputy Minister, please proceed.
Thanks once more, Honorable Deputy Speaker, and good afternoon, honorable members. The financial sector is a key component of a modern economy like South Africa, and it plays a key role in economic growth and development. Not only does the financial sector industry on its own directly contribute to our GDP, but it also plays a pivotal role in economic development by mobilizing and pooling funds for investment projects, facilitating the exchange of goods and services, helping in allocating scarce resources, and to diversify risks, and facilitating as well as encouraging inflow of foreign capital. We should view the financial sector as a lubricant required for the smooth functioning of other sectors, that is manufacturing, agriculture, and mining. The government itself also needs some financial services to carry out its functions. Therefore, there are positive, mutually reinforcing dynamics from financial services to these other sectors. The growth that we see in the financial sector is a reflection of growth in the demand of these services, not a reflection of the financial sector crowding out any other sector. The growth of the South African services sector is reflective of its dynamism, productivity, and global competitiveness. Services now account for over 60% of the national output and are a major source of employment, particularly in finance, retail, and telecommunications industries. The sector has strong linkages to the productive sectors of the economy, further boosting its direct impact on GDP and tax revenue. The financial sector directly contributes to around 20% of the total tax collected through corporate and personal taxes in 2022-2023. This is a valuable economic asset for an emerging economy like ours. Notably, the financial sector enables the government to borrow resources to fund government programs in local currency, while many neighboring countries have to borrow in hard currencies like the US dollar. This means that their stock of debt and affordability of debt are determined externally with no reference to domestic conditions. Noting the strong linkages between services and productive sectors, several broad-based initiatives are underway to support the economy, including tax and on-budget incentives. The government continues to
Deputy
prioritize.
Minister, unfortunately, your time has expired.
Thank you.
Thank you, Deputy Minister. The first supplementary question will be asked by the Honourable Makubela.
Thank you, Deputy Speaker. DM, South Africa's DFIs rely on the market financing at commercial rates. Honourable DM, that has its own constraints. Can you inform this House on the measures that National Treasury is looking into towards recapitalizing these DFIs to enable access to stable, low-cost, and long-term funding for targeted sectors? Thank you.
The Honourable Deputy Minister.
Thanks, Deputy Speaker and Honourable Makubele. I think that we are indeed diversifying our source of capital, because what informs our borrowing is to always find cheap money so that our debt service costs are reduced. And therefore, we, however, make sure that we borrow in domestic, in rand-dominated currencies, basically borrowing in rand so that we hedge against the exchange risk associated with the movement of external currencies. And we are also finding liability solutions to some of the DFIs that have had serious challenges in servicing their debt. Last week, if not 2 weeks ago, we've announced a liability solution for the Land Bank, which will now enable the Land Bank to lend to farmers in order to boost and support our agriculture, thus supporting economic growth. Thank you, Deputy Speaker.
Second supplementary question will be asked by the Honourable Alexander.
Thank you very much. Minister, the government and financial sectors each play a critical role and have different needs in our economy. They need to work together with government setting rules and the banks often funding government through bonds. This teamwork is key for our growth. However, we struggle to attract investors lately. Both local and international businesses seem hesitant. We are faced with slow growth, high unemployment, frequent recessions, political stability concerns. corruption scandals. Load shedding has scared off our investors too. And we're also dealing with skill shortages, credit rating downgrades, and a shaky rand. Minister, given these challenges, how exactly do you plan to make South Africa an attractive place for both local and foreign investment again?
The Honourable Deputy Minister.
Thanks once more, Deputy Speaker. One of the key things that we've been doing, particularly since 2020, the sixth administration, which is continuing in this seventh administration, has been to make South Africa attractive to investors. And part of making South Africa attractive to investors is to reduce the cost of doing business in South Africa. And it's for that reason that we've embarked on a number of reforms in the network industries, which are aimed at reducing the cost of electricity, the cost of freight logistics, the cost of telecommunications, and also enabling our companies to attract critical skills that we can't find in the South African economy. And these reforms include the liberalization of the energy market, in which we've allowed the private sector itself to invest in energy generation, but also from a tax point of view, we've reduced the tax liability on households and businesses that are interested in investing in renewable energies, solar, and so on and so on. And on the freight logistics through Operation Vulindlela, we are working hard to make sure that the companies that settle here, they are able to transport goods in South Africa, within South Africa, but also to the rest of the world, and working on the visa regime that should enable companies that want to attract or employ skills outside South Africa to bring those skills with ease in South Africa. Thank you, Honourable Member and Deputy Speaker and Honourable Members.
Thank you, Deputy Minister. The third supplementary question will be asked by the Honourable Thring.
Thank you. Deputy Minister, the ACDP understands that financialization is a process whereby financial markets, financial institutions, elites gain greater influence over the economy, economic policy, and economic outcomes, accruing profits primarily through the financial channels rather than through trade and commodity prices. The ACDP supports an open market economy with a social conscience and a focus on the country's competitive advantages, including its mining and natural resources through beneficiation. Now, with our economy being highly concentrated, this negatively impacts on our Gini coefficient and to a large extent exacerbates poverty, inequality, and unemployment in South Africa. Now, Deputy Minister, with financialization affecting the gap between gross savings and gross capital formation, which has widened since 1994, what are your structural economic interventions to close that gap, including the gap between public and private gross capital formation? Thank you.
The Honourable Deputy Minister.
Thank you. I think the key task facing us in South Africa is how do we set incentives and structures that will enable the financial capital to flow into the real economy. I think that's a key issue that is facing South Africa today. And because the linkages between the financial sector and the productive sector can only be enhanced if we set the right incentives and structures to attract the capital flow into the real economy. And I think we are beginning to have some conversations with asset managers who manage pension funds and other savings in the economy on how we can work together to get funding towards some of the critical programs, some of which include infrastructure, which has been identified as part and parcel of the priority for this government. For instance, there is a program between ASISA, which is an association of savings and investment, that we're working with them on one program, just as an example, on water, in which we said, get money into the municipalities to fix our pipes that are leading to water losses, because those pipes are old, and we have agreed with them and to say that, look, you can come in a manner that you invest into this infrastructure, and we guarantee that the returns, your returns will be realized by ring-fencing the revenue that
Honourable
will be
Deputy
generated.
Minister, your time has
by sale of
expired.
water. Thank you very much.
Thank you. The last supplementary question will be asked by the Honourable Zibi.
Thank you, Madam Deputy Speaker. Honorable Deputy Minister, every business exists in a municipality. Their dysfunction is costing the economy and destroying jobs. Currently, municipalities owe ESCOM more than 75 billion rand. As you know, many are poorly run and can no longer afford to meet this obligation without compromising other services. Given the unpopularity of ESCOM's revenue applications, is there a plan to ensure that this debt is settled with ESCOM without resorting to the unpopular electricity price increases? Thank you.
The Honourable Deputy Minister.
Thanks. I think there is a debt relief program for municipalities that owe ESCOM. Because we said, as part and parcel of finding a liability solution for the ESCOM debt, we said part of it, the sovereign will take the debt owed to ESCOM, but ESCOM also needs to be paid. And we said those municipalities that owe ESCOM, they need to meet certain conditions for them to have some debt relief. And part of the conditions include the installing prepaid meters for users of this electricity, so that these municipalities are able to generate or recover the cost for providing electricity to households as well as businesses, so that they don't fall into the debt situation in which they find themselves in. But the most sustainable way of getting out of debt is for them to grow their local economies.
Thank you, Deputy Minister. The next question is question number 212, and it has been asked by the Honourable Sali to the Minister of Employment and Labour. The question is about the policy strategies developed to address South Africa's unemployment rate. The Honourable Minister.
Thank you, Honourable Deputy Speaker. Thank you, Honourable Sali, for the question. Let me make this one critical point first, a point I will keep on repeating, Honourable Deputy Speaker. The unemployment nature in our country is deep-seated, systemic, structural, and stubborn. So when we look at the unemployment challenge in the country, it is always important to bear that in mind. Since the advent of democracy, the unemployment challenge has been one of the top priorities of government. As a result, labor laws were formulated, policies were crafted, programs were implemented, and multiple strategies were employed in the previous administrations. What this 7th administration is doing is a continuation of that work, but the focus now is more on collaborations, partnerships, cooperation, and networking. We see collaboration, partnership, cooperation, and networking starting with departments of government, different spheres of government, public entities, and private sector. Given the nature of the unemployment challenge that I have already characterized earlier, clearly this is not a matter of a single government department. The best that a line department can do is to coordinate the initiatives and interventions widely in the state and with private sector. That is our strategic direction. Taking it closer to the policy strategies of the department. A draft national employment policy is due for public consultations. Additionally, the department is in advanced stages of processing the National Labour Migration Policy and the Employment Services Amendment Bill that will soon be coming to Parliament. Subsection 2 of the question, the target to reduce unemployment levels in the next 5 years is a government-wide program, and our interventions, like those of other departments, will contribute to that reduction. The department, through its entity, the Unemployment Insurance Fund, has established in terms of Section 5, subsection D of the Unemployment Insurance Act, Labor Activation Program. LAP was established to reskill and reintegrate UIF beneficiaries who had lost their work with relevant skills responsive to the labor market needs. A key requirement in the implementation of LAP is for partners to confirm the absorption of the participants into jobs subsequent to the completion of the program. LAP will therefore cover various sectors of the economy, which include agriculture, construction, manufacturing, energy, education, and training, legal, hospitality, wholesale and retail, security services, insurance, information technology, engineering, transport, cleaning and hygiene, food and beverages. I thank you, Honourable Deputy Speaker.
Thank you, Honourable Minister. The first supplementary question will be asked by the Honourable Sali.
Thank you, Madam Chair, and thank you, Minister. I duly note that these type of promises has been made very often in the strategies, etc. But what I have noted is that too often we don't have set timelines on how we're going to implement. What I also would like to know is which sectors of the industries has been approached to assist in this regard. I thank you.
The Honourable Minister.
Thank you, Deputy Speaker. I think I have mentioned that we are targeting to reduce unemployment in the next 5 years, and I also listed the sectors that we'll be working with. Thank you, Deputy Speaker.
Thank you, Honourable Minister. The second supplementary question will be asked by the Honourable Denner.
Thank you, Deputy Speaker. Honourable Minister, you mentioned that your department has plans to collaborate. Excuse me if I missed it, but I didn't hear that you have plans to collaborate with other state departments. And the reason why I'm saying that is we've seen that state departments have been working in silos for the past how many years. Now, youth unemployment for youth between the ages of 15 and 24 years is about 60%. And our education system has been producing youth who are unemployable. So what I'd like to know, does your department's plans include working with the Department of Education to produce employable youth, because your department's expanded mandate is that of employment creation? And also, aside from producing employable youth, are you looking into plans with regards to taking hands with the Department of Education to assist youth to create their own employment once they are done with school? Thank you, Deputy Speaker.
The Honourable Minister.
Thank you so much, Deputy Speaker. Actually, I have said we are targeting the government departments, government spheres, and all other sectors or stakeholders in our communities and in our country. But of course, Honourable Member, we are targeting education, basic education, higher education and training, and also we are targeting working with the economic cluster departments in ensuring that we do this work. It is for that reason that even in the program that we are doing under LAP, we are targeting to even help to employ assistant teachers, because we are taking interest in the education system, as it is the one that gives us what we want as we go to the labor market. We want skilled people that are educated at the foundation phase up to higher education and training. So we are very interested, and we will be working with the Department of Basic Education and DHET.
The third supplementary question will be asked by the Honourable Swart.
Thank you, Deputy Speaker. Deputy Speaker, the ACDP shares the concerns expressed about the skyrocketing unemployment rate, particularly amongst the youth. Now, one of the ways of alleviating the consequences of unemployment is the Unemployment Insurance Fund, referred to by the Minister in her response. Yet the fund is in a disastrous state with broken and dysfunctional online systems, non-payment of benefits, service provider court battles, and a number of other challenges which have seemingly brought the fund to its knees. What steps, Honourable Minister, will you be taking to stabilise the fund and to ensure payments to unemployed beneficiaries are made? And will you consider placing the fund under administration should the problems persist with the fund? Thank you.
The Honourable Minister.
Thank you, Deputy Speaker. Thank you, Honourable Member. I'm not too sure about the needs that UIF is on, but what I know, there are challenges, but also there is work that we are doing. We continue to pay our contributors. The UIF is hard at work. Yes, there are serious challenges where sometimes those challenges are beyond our control when service providers decide to take us or the UIF to court, but we defend ourselves. But as we speak now, we are working and we are having challenges that we have a clear plan or program to turn around the UIF in terms of being where we want it to be. But as we speak, Honorable Deputy Speaker, we are paying claimants. We are also wanting to repurpose the programs that we are doing, like your lab program, to ensure that they benefit the most, or first and foremost, the former contributors of the UIF. Thank you very much.
Thank you, Minister. The last supplementary question will be asked by the Honourable Maimane.
Ndiyabulela, Deputy Speaker. Minister, I agree with you that our unemployment levels are both historical and structural. And therefore, my question speaks to the fact that if Hendrik Verwoerd's vision was to ensure that townships become dormitories of unemployment, I think it can remain true today that many of our townships still remain places where too many young people are unemployed. I don't believe that we've done enough to use our procurement spend to stimulate the township economy in the manner that it was envisaged. So my question to you, Minister, is whether or not are you willing to support a view that says, given that there are those townships, can we declare them special economic zones that help with tax incentives, manage regulation, and ensure that we can increase the number of people who are working closer to home and ultimately achieving a job in every home? Thank you very much, Minister.
The Honourable Minister.
Thank you so much, Deputy Speaker. Our President has said whatever we do on this seventh administration should be evidence-based and very scientific. So we agree with the Honourable Member of the importance of the township economy, rural economy, and informal economy. It is for that reason that we are targeting the small businesses, working with the Department of Small Business Development to help them to grow, to make sure that when they are facing serious challenges, we're coming into the space to come up with turnaround, rescue plans, and all what we do, working with our UI fund. But at the same time, we are wanting to prioritize. We will be continuing to come to this Parliament, coming with the policy reforms that will prioritize small businesses, ring fence opportunities for township economy, for your small businesses or informal sector like your hawkers, so that we don't see our people not having a space to operate, because now our open door policy has tended to be a disadvantage to the people of South Africa, in particular those that are emerging businesses. So we can't agree more. It is an area of focus, but not to say we want all of them to be special economic zones, but to be a target and a priority in terms of support, working with the cluster departments that we are working with.
Thank you, Honourable Minister. Question 214 has been asked by the Honourable Maeko to the Minister of Employment and Labour. The question is about whether the department has collected comprehensive data on the state of employment equity in the financial sector. The Honourable Minister.
Yabulela Sekela Somlomo. The department has a mandate to monitor the progress made to transform the labor market through Employment Equity Act. Section 21 of the Employment Equity Act requires that designated employers submit annual EE reports to the department reflecting the EE progress made at each workplace. These EE reports are submitted annually from 1st September until 15 January. The following year, Thereafter, as part of their legal mandate, the Commission of Employment Equity, which is a statutory body established by Section 28 of the EEA, is required to analyze the EE data submitted through the EE reports and produce an annual EE report to the Minister of Employment and Labor. In terms of Section 33 of the EEA, the EE annual reports published annually provide the EE status and the transformation pace of the labor market as reported by designated employers in that particular EE reporting period. Noteworthy and of relevance is that the latest 2023-24 EE annual report was published and released to the public on the 24th of June 2024, which is available on the department's website. This latest report highlights that over 26 years since the inception of the EEA, economic sectors, including the financial sector in the labor market, remain racialized and gendered, in particular at the four upper occupational levels, that is top management, senior management, middle and junior management. Honorable member, we have asked about transformation status in the financial sector, and the CEE report indicates the following breakdown. Whites account for 58.8%, Africans 18.8%, coloreds 5.7%, Indians 12.5%. Moreover, women only accounts for 29.4% of all the positions at the management level. The breakdown for the senior management level shows the following picture. Whites occupy 45.4%, Africans 24.5%, coloreds 8.8%, and Indians 16.9%. Once more, women less represented at only 42%. All of these positions, senior management level. It is critical to highlight that in order to assess compliance in relation to the equitable representation of the designated groups across each occupational level of the workplace, Section 42 of the EEA requires that one of the factors to be taken into account must be the demographics of the national and regional provincial economically active population. The EAP is collected by Stats SA through quarterly labor force survey, which defines the EAP as persons between the ages 15 to 64 years who are either employed or unemployed but seeking employment. In this regard, the National EAP from QLFS 3/2023 prescribed that Africans account for 80.7%, coloreds 9%, Indians 2.6%, and whites 7.7% of the EAP. Therefore, in relation to the financial sector, whites at 58.8% and Indians at 12.5% are overrepresented at top management levels in relation to their EAP. Again, at the senior management level, white occupies 45.4% and Indians 16.9% of all positions at this level, which implies that these populations have surpassed their respective EAP. In light of that, we are saying we want to ensure that in the economic sectors, including financial sector, in the labor market, must be clear that self-regulation by employers has not yielded positive results over the years. Hence, the need to move with speed to implement the current EE amendments contained in the EE Amendment Act number 4/2022, aimed at expediting the pace of transformation to create inclusive and diversified workplaces as envisaged by the EEA. Thank you, Deputy Speaker.
Thank you, Honourable Minister. The first supplementary question will be asked by the Honourable Maeko.
Thank you, Madam Speaker. Minister, what is the anticipated commencement date for Employment Equity Amendment Act, given its importance in addressing historical imbalances in the workplace? Are there any identified hindrances or challenges that may affect the commencement of this act?
The Honourable Minister.
Thank you, Deputy Speaker. There are no anticipated challenges in the implementation, but the department is still busy engaging on ensuring that we develop regulations that will guide us on how best to implement the Employment Equity Amendment Act. Thank you, Speaker.
The second supplementary question will be asked by the Honourable Motubatse.
No, thanks, Deputy Speaker. I think, Minister, having actually given that particular picture, it is very clear that there's urgency to move with the necessary speed. I think it will be correct that we start here by actually identifying how many companies in the financial sector have been found to be non-compliant with the Employment Equity Act itself, and what actions has been taken by the minister against such companies. If not, why not? Thanks.
The Honourable Minister.
Thank you, Deputy Speaker. May I be allowed to give statistics, but for now, we are busy with reinforcing the capacity of the inspectorate because in majority of times, we depend on the human resource capacity that we have to reach out to all the companies that we need to inspect in terms of their compliance. But we are gonna be reinforcing that by appointing more than 20,000 interns to be able to access and be able to be available to all these places that we need to get to. And also we are strengthening our ICT as we cannot only depend on the physical visit that normally gets done by our inspectors. We also need to have an ICT system that is able to help us to detect who are these that are not complying. But in terms of the statistics, if I'm allowed, Honourable Deputy Speaker, may I offer the member with the statistics in terms of that?
Thank you, Honourable Minister. The third supplementary question will be asked by the Honourable Mkonto.
Thanks, Deputy Speaker. Minister, as you are still embarking on the process of appointing the 20,000 interns as labor inspectors, for now, how many public institutions and private companies have complied with the Affirmative Action Act since it was introduced? What compliance mechanisms have you put in place to ensure that these companies comply? Because women, young people, and people living with disabilities, they still feel disadvantaged in their workplace. Thank you.
The Honourable Minister.
Thank you very much, Deputy Speaker. In terms of the statistics, I don't have the statistics at hand now in terms of the compliance in particular of both the public and private sector. But what I would say in terms of the report that was issued earlier this year by the EE Commissioner, the public sector is trying to comply. It's not that bad, but private sector is the one that is found wanting in terms of affirmative action, in particular when it comes to the issue of women representation, both at executive and senior management level. But again, if I'm allowed, Honourable Deputy Speaker, I would get the information in terms of the detail of what are the statistics that talk to the compliance with the affirmative action, both in private and public sector.
Thank you, Minister. The last supplementary question will be asked by the Honourable Van der Walt.
Thank you, Deputy Speaker. Has the Minister considered using the UN's Social Development Goals as an indicator of redress and development instead of race? If not, why not? If the Minister has investigated the idea of using this index, what did the investigation find?
The Honourable Minister.
I think there are members who are making a noise here, Deputy Speaker, and they are drowning the speakers. So I missed that question from the Honourable Member. If I may please ask the member to repeat.
Honourable Minister, yes, I will ask the member to repeat it. Honourable members, please, we have to allow the Minister to be able to hear the question. Honourable members of the EFF, please allow the Honourable Member to repeat the question so that the Minister can hear. Please proceed, Honourable Van der Walt.
Has the Minister considered using the UN's Social Development Goals as an indicator of redress and development instead of race? If not, why not? And if the Minister has investigated the idea of using this index, what did the investigation find?
The Honourable Minister.
Thank you so much, Deputy Speaker. No, I haven't. I haven't investigated that particular approach of the UN versus using the racial. So I will come back to the House and give information when I have that. Thank you.
Thank you, Honourable Minister. We now proceed to the next question, question number 245, and it has been asked by the Honourable Bateman to the Minister of Finance. The question is about the measures to mitigate the impact of severe budget cuts on government department service delivery programs, such as education, health, and other social services. I have been informed that Mr. Sarupan, the Deputy Minister, will be answering this question on behalf of the Minister. The Honourable Deputy Minister.
Thank you very much, Deputy Speaker. Deputy Speaker, in the 2024 budget, we have outlined the balanced approach that we are taking to address the significant fiscal challenges facing our country. We have a large debt burden that will exceed 75% of GDP by 2025/6 in the context of poor economic growth. And debt service costs now absorb more than 20% of revenue and are consuming a greater share of the budget than basic education, health, and other services. In addition, in the budget, you will see that a large portion of the liabilities that this government now has to pay off were incurred in the years since 2009/10 and are falling due in the current MTEF. Nevertheless, this government has taken steps to protect the social wage. There's a standing decision that 60% of the consolidated budget goes to the social wage, and the spending reductions that were announced in the 2023 MTBPS were reversed in the 2024 budget in respect of numerous services. Moreover, the carry-through costs of the 2023/4 wage increases were estimated by the National Treasury for the critical sectors, learning and culture, peace and security, health and social developments, and were passed through to ensure that there's a minimal impact of these cuts on service delivery programs. Thank you, Deputy Speaker.
Thank you, Deputy Minister. The first supplementary question will be asked by the Honourable Bateman.
Thank you, Deputy Speaker. Honourable Minister, it is on, isn't it? Yeah. Can you hear me if I stand? I'm worried that I'm too far away from the mic.
Yes, please proceed.
Mr.
Yes, Honourable Trollop.
The budget crisis.
Honourable Bateman, please take your seat for a minute.
Deputy Speaker, on a point of order, some people come here, I'm speaking in the mic. Some people come here to work and listen, and other people come here to make a noise. Can you please ask them to just quieten down or speak outside?
Thank you, Honourable Trollop. I have repeatedly asked members to contain the level of their discussions. Honourable Paulson, I'm not going to take it's not going to be a debate now between whether you are loud or not. But honourable members, please respect the process. We are in chamber. We have the citizens of the country watching, and they want to hear what the ministers are saying and what you as members are asking of the ministers. So could we please proceed and make sure that the ministers can in fact hear the question. Honourable Bateman, you were more audible when you were sitting. So please proceed. Do you have a hand mic? Yes, please proceed.
Thank you, Deputy Speaker. Minister, the budget crisis we are facing occurred in part because governments agreed to wage increases which the government knew were unaffordable and would lead to pressure on public services and the job losses we now face. This obviously must not happen again. The obvious question then is what concrete steps will the minister take to ensure that the government does not commit the fiscus to unaffordable wage increases again this year and in the future?
The Honourable Deputy Minister.
Thank you very much, Deputy Speaker. Deputy Speaker, there is a mandating committee that will determine what we approach the wage negotiations with. And that mandating committee does have representatives from all the provincial treasuries. And so it'll not be done in the absence of the provincial treasuries, but in tandem with them. However, Deputy Speaker, we further have had several meetings, and on Monday there was a budget council as well as a technical meeting with provincial treasuries. And the provincial treasuries did not dispute the fact that we did make sure that we passed through costs for the last wage agreements, but that other priorities and accruals took precedent in settling those amounts instead of the cost of employees. We note that there are pressures on the system, and we are engaging with provinces to resolve this. Thank you.
The second supplementary question will be asked by the Honourable Meshwe.
Thank you, Honourable Deputy Speaker. Honourable Minister. Government's severe budget cuts have not only impacted service delivery on education and health only, but also on crime. And because of this crime, it has increased. suffering for the vulnerable, and the poorest of the poor, who, among others, live in fear of being targeted by criminals. Police say they cannot effectively address crime due to these budget cuts. And as a result, there are not enough detectives and police vans. Instead of allocating 2 billion rands for VIP protection, the ACDP proposes that half of it should go towards strengthening the police force by hiring more detectives to help in the fight against crime. Will the minister agree that an increased number of better trained detectives will help see crime levels reduced? Thank you.
Thank you, Honorable Meshwe. The Honorable Deputy Minister.
Thank you very much, Deputy Speaker. Deputy Speaker, in the 2023 MTBPS announcement, the initial reductions on the peace and security cluster, which includes police, would have been just under a 30 billion rand reduction over 3 years. However, in the 2024 budget, we reversed that, and the peace and security cluster is getting an additional 40 billion rand funding over the MTEF. So I agree with the Honorable Meshwe that we must get more police officers on the streets. And if you look at the Chapter 5 of the budget review document from 2024, you'll see that the Treasury has taken great steps to ensure that we do protect the peace and security budget going forward. Thank you.
The third supplementary question will be asked by the Honorable Kwankwa.
Thank you, Deputy Speaker, ever so much. Deputy Minister, according to media reports, the budget cuts have already led to job cuts in the Western Cape Department of Education, with over 2,400 jobs set to be cut in that province alone. And in KwaZulu-Natal, the Provincial Department of Education cannot afford to pay 11,092 educators due to budget cuts. Recently, the Gauteng MEC of Education also announced that more than 3,000 educators' jobs are at risk. These budget cuts exacerbate the losses incurred by other departments. How is the minister and the department going to ensure that these do not affect disproportionately poor communities who are already struggling, whose educational outcomes are low because of the challenges that have to do with the resources allocated to the various departments? Thank you.
The Honorable Deputy Minister.
Thank you very much, Deputy Speaker. Deputy Speaker, as I said earlier, we have had a Budget Council as well as a technical level meeting between the provincial treasuries and the provincial MECs to find ways to alleviate this pressure. But Deputy Speaker, we have further investigated what is sitting at the root cause of some of these pressures in the provinces. In the Western Cape, the pressure relates to learner increases, which requires the department to recruit additional teachers due to in-migration. In KwaZulu-Natal, the budget cuts are in relation to a wage freeze in the 2021 MTEF. The cuts were higher than what was budgeted for because the department had not sufficiently provided for inflation as per the guidelines that were given. Similarly, we see each of these provinces having different reasons, and in some provinces, Deputy Speaker, we have seen that when we pay over the wage settlement increases, they use it to settle accruals rather than paying salaries. Now, provinces are autonomous spheres of government when it comes to budgeting, and we cannot override their legislature's rights to pass their own budgets. We provide technical support. We are meeting with them. They are part of the mandating committee so that we get a wage agreement that everyone can live with, but we cannot override another sphere of government in that regard. Thank you very much.
The last supplementary question will be asked by the Honorable Malatsi.
Thank you, Speaker. Deputy Minister, the National Treasury has funded the Metro's public employment program, which has provided much needed relief to the vulnerable people. It looks like the program will not be funded again. My question is, what is the department's future plan on this program under the GNU?
The Deputy Minister.
The National Treasury continues to fund multiple public employment programs, including the Presidential Employment Stimulus, as well as various other programs, such as the Expanded Public Works Program and so on. With regards to this particular the Metro Public Employment Program, the matter is still under consideration in the Treasury, Deputy Speaker, and when we get to the NTBPS and the budget next year, we'll have more clarity. Thank you very much.
Thank you, Deputy Minister. We now move on to question number 229, which has been asked by the Honourable Van Rooyen to the Minister of Finance. The question is about his instruction to the Reserve Bank to not attend the Standing Committee on Finance Oversight meetings related to Itala Bank and the department's role in resolving the problems of Itala Bank. I have been informed that the Deputy Minister, Dr. Masondu, will be answering the question on behalf of the Minister. The Honourable Deputy Minister.
Thanks once more, Honourable Deputy Speaker, and thanks for the question from Honourable Member Van Rooyen. In a letter dated the 2nd September 2024, addressed to the Standing Committee of Finance Chair, the Finance Minister expressed appreciation for the role of SCOF, but suggested on account of the sensitivity around the expiry of the Itala banking license exemption and the need to ensure the safety and security of the officials of the National Treasury and the financial sector regulators, that the deliberations should take place virtually rather than at Itala's premises. I'm glad to note that the meeting did take place the following day at the Moses Mabhida Stadium, where the Reserve Bank presented to the committee. As the Honourable Member will be aware that the Finance Minister and National Treasury's role as far as the regulation of banks is concerned is limited only to the formulation of financial regulatory policy. As Itala operates in a regulated environment, it should comply with all the directives and regulations that apply to all regulated banks. The Honourable Member will be aware that after many years of deliberations and due diligence, Parliament enacted Financial Sector Regulation Act of 2017, which reaffirmed and is unequivocally clear on the need for the financial sector regulatory policies and for the Minister not to interfere with regulatory processes in relation to the banking institutions. Given that neither the Minister of Finance nor National Treasury is empowered in terms of the Banks Act and other laws that govern the activities of regulated financial institutions, to interfere with the work of independent regulatory activities, Itala, in the interest of the protection of the depositors' funds that are held by the institution, continue abiding by the guidance and directives of the independent financial regulators. Any interference by the Finance Minister or any other person or body in the regulatory activities of independent regulatory institutions will be at variance with the government's objectives for the regulation of the financial sector, which require regulatory authorities to operate independently, autonomously, and without interference. So as things stand, Itala has no banking license. We've agreed with the KZN government, provincial government, on the process of licensing Itala. And in the meantime, the deposits will be housed by a registered bank trading as Itala. And at this stage, we cannot disclose the name of the bank because we are still negotiating with 3 banks. Thank you, Honourable Speaker.
The first supplementary question will be asked by the Honourable Van Rooyen.
Thank you, Deputy Speaker. Deputy Minister, does it mean you are concerned about the security of National Treasury or officials of the regulatory bodies to service our people in KZN? I think it's important for you to take the nation on board about what are the security details that you are concerned of. To say people of KZN should not be serviced by National Treasury officials because of your security concerns. But secondly, I hope you are aware that the currently appointed rate payment administrator has imposed severe restrictions on Itala Bank, resulting in Itala being unable to procure basic items and receive payment on its rental stock. And this affects negatively the depositors and the bank revenue generation efforts. This situation is negatively affecting Itala Bank, resulting in the king of the Amazulu nation, His Majesty Mesizulu KwaZulu-Natal, raising concerns with developments surrounding Itala Bank. Does the minister support the call to terminate the repayment administrator service and start constructive engagement to save Itala to the benefit of its rural depositors, mainly in Zululand, and all other stakeholders? And in this way, I think we'll be addressing the concern that has been raised by His Majesty the King. I thank you.
The Honourable Deputy Minister.
Thanks once more. Firstly, National Treasury officials, they serve South Africa. However, it is difficult, and I'm also advised that according to our laws, you cannot force employees to work under conditions where they do not feel safe, whether it's in Limpopo or in Gauteng or anywhere in South Africa. So I do think that there is no specific security assessment that I'm aware of, but the officials felt that they will not be safe under those circumstances, and hence they've requested to have this meeting virtually or in Parliament. So I think, like I said, we're very clear that the meeting eventually took place. And as I said, we are trying to find a solution working together with the provincial government of KZN towards the process of ensuring that the Itala has a license. So we are dealing with the problem together with Treasury officials. They are serving South Africa, including KwaZulu-Natal. The last question, Deputy Speaker, I did not get it very clearly because it sounded like it's a substantive question. I will appreciate if the honorable member can either write and then we'll respond accordingly because I could not get it very clear.
Thank you, Deputy Minister. The time is also expired. The second supplementary question will be asked by the Honourable Lekganyane.
Thank you so much, Honourable Deputy Speaker. Honourable Deputy Minister, you have alluded to the challenges that Itala Bank faces. So I would want to know from yourselves acting within the statutory framework and appreciating the independence of the Prudential Authority and the Financial Services Conduct Authority. What are the long-term strategies that are being considered by the National Treasury to position Itala Bank for sustainable growth and competitiveness within the banking sector? Thank you so much.
The Honourable the Deputy Minister.
Thanks, House Chair. We can only set the conditions for banks to operate competitively within the South African government. And I'm sure that once we would have done everything to save the bank, the board of the bank, including the provincial government, where we can as a national government, we'll work with them to make sure that we support such bank as Itala, because the concentration of the banking sector in which there's few banking services, few banks dominating the banking market, the financial sector, is not desirable. We do think that banks such as Itala and others need to operate in South Africa in order to increase the level of competitiveness within South Africa, because surely our banks are highly competitive globally. We have the financial sector, which is based on the, as you correctly said, the Prudential Authority, as well as the Conduct Authority, which deals with how the financial sector treats its customers, its clients, and the Prudential Authority, which makes sure that the deposit, the money under their management is properly managed. So I think once everything is sorted out, I'm sure the board will have a strategy on how best to grow that bank at that time. Thank you, House Chair and honorable members.
Thank you. The third supplementary question will be asked by the Honorable Khadebe.
Thank you so much, Honorable Chairperson, Honorable Deputy Minister. The suspension of Itala Bank's license has sparked fear and uncertainty amongst its customers, employees, and civil society. This is because the bank provides critical service to rural communities. Considering this, what interim measures has your department put in place to assist the communities which Itala Bank has served? Thank you.
The Honorable the Deputy Minister.
As I said, Honorable Member, Honorable Khadebe, that the deposits will be housed by a registered bank trading as Itala. And once the negotiations are finalized, I'm certain that we'll be in a better position to articulate on what should be the way forward in that regard.
Thank you. The last supplementary question will be asked by the Honorable Beasley.
Deputy Minister, in order for Itala to survive and for the ongoing protection of depositors, there needs to be a massive injection of capital by the shareholder, namely the KZN government. Are you and your department in discussions with the KZN government regarding this capital injection? If so, what has been their response? If no response, is National Treasury prepared to inject capital? We need to be honest about this. We cannot have another VBS.
Honorable the Minister, Deputy Minister.
Thanks, House Chair. At this stage, we have not reached that point insofar as determining the capital structure of the bank, its recapitalization. So to answer your question, at this stage, there is no capital set aside, to my knowledge, at the provincial government level and at the national level to recapitalize Itala.
Thank you. Honorable members, question number 215 has been asked by the Honorable Hassan to the Minister of Electricity and Energy. The question is about whether the government will consider initiating a review of the free basic electricity program in an effort to reduce energy poverty and mitigate the rising cost of electricity as part of an integrated social security net for poor communities. The Honorable the Minister.
Thank you very much, House Chair, and thanks to Honorable Hassan. On the occasion of the opening of Parliament of the 7th administration, President Ramaphosa expanded on the 3 priorities of the 7th administration. And the third priority is about fighting poverty and reducing the cost of living. There's a rich body of evidence that suggests that the poor are disproportionately affected by the rising cost of living. And in fact, the World Bank does highlight, amongst others, that the South Africa's consumer price index reached approximately 5.2% in 2003, up from 4.5% in 2019. And this inflation is driven by, amongst others, the rising prices of food, transport, housing, and also utilities, which include electricity. We also know that the configuration of the South Africa's energy complex has undergone major structural shift, and this calls for a considered and deliberate approach on how we're going to deal with the exponential rise in the cost of living and electricity in this instance. 3 interventions. At the level of legislation, the ERA does envisage a situation where tariffs do get to consider the fact that there needs to be some degree of cross-subsidization of particular categories of consumers. At the policy level, we are now in the course of reviewing the electricity pricing policy to ensure that it improves the competitiveness and the efficiency of supplying low-cost and high-quality electricity to all sectors, as well as addressing elements of social equity and the needs of low-income households. So, Honorable Hassan, yes, we're considering in the context of that electricity pricing policy, one, to keep the free basic electricity. Secondly, to review the ceiling of that free basic electricity. You know, the quantum, the ceiling of 50 kilowatt hour was introduced in 2003, so it's 21 years later. And there's been significant, if you like, mutations in the electricity complex in the country, including from a technology point of view. Secondly, is to make sure that the interventions we're making are efficacious. We know that National Treasury is providing support to 10 million houses in this country to receive free basic electricity, but only 2 million are receiving it as a result of significant weaknesses at the municipal level. So we're working with SALGA to address that. And then the second one is that quantum 50 kilowatt hour, I think, needs to be revised. And like I said, in the context of the review of the electricity pricing policy supported by evidence, we'll get to a quantum, and I'm confident even before, without necessarily preempting what that outcome is, will be significantly greater than 50 kilowatt hour. And the last intervention is to ensure that we repurpose the INEP grant to ensure that besides the ambitions of universal access, but we are able to use cleaner interventions, benefit the rural communities, households that are in distress, so that they can benefit from the natural endowments. Thanks, House Chair.
Thank you. The first supplementary question will be asked by the Honorable Hassan.
Thank you very much, House Chair, and of course to the Minister for that very comprehensive response. Minister, perhaps you can take us through some of the timeframes for the review and how the department intends to work alongside Eskom and municipalities. You mentioned SALGA and the 2 million, but effectively to identify and improve access for indigent households for the FBE subsidy. Thank you.
Honorable the Minister.
Before that, thanks, House Chair. Yes, the intention is to include all stakeholders. I must say that the electricity pricing policy had gone through a net-leg process, but we think that it has not accommodated, if you like, the structural shifts that I referred to earlier on. So it's important that we are also able to accommodate SALGA in that conversation, because they are a significant stakeholder, and also communities, because I think they're invested in the resolution of this question. So it is important that the conversations are far-reaching, wide, and productive and robust. Of course, in terms of the timeframes, the intention is to ensure that before the next cycle of the review of the tariff structures, we should be in a position where we are able to, from a policy point of view, direct what should constitute the underlying methodology, because the methodological approach of NERSA is driven by our policy articulation. So it's a policy orientation that informs the science that undergirds the determinations of tariffs. So we really are looking before the next cycle to have concluded this process. Of course, it's a very ultra-aggressive, ambitious, but I think that the time is against us. Everyone is experiencing significant distress as a result of these exponential increases. So it is in our collective interest that we resolve the matter as soon as yesterday.
Thank you. The second supplementary question will be asked by the Honorable Mbata.
Minister, would it not be ideal that you change the terrain of establishing solutions for electricity prices in South Africa? Currently, Eskom is seeking a tariff increase of 40%, and South Africa can no longer afford any more additional increases that could actually even pass 40%, in particular because they've been coming over a period of 6 years consistently. One of the things maybe that you should consider is dealing exactly with the main problem. In South Africa, the primary energy costs are driven, or the primary energy cost that drives electricity is coal. And the coal miners receive permits or licenses from government. And Eskom currently seems to be the only biggest buyer of coal.
Honorable member, please round up. Your time has expired.
Would it not be a better option for a government to control the coal prices so as to manage the electricity prices? Because our problem is coal. We have 50 years
Thank
of
you.
endowment
I think
of
the
coal.
minister got the question, even with a few seconds extra.
No, thank you very much, Honorable Mbata. You're absolutely correct. I think the review of the dispensation should be far-reaching. Of course, hitherto, I think the pricing methodology was resolving an Eskom problem, but I think we should be resolving an industry problem. Because I think as a result of the reforms that have been introduced on the generation side, we have introduced additional players in that space. But I do agree with you that coal is a major factor in that. If you look at the equation on revenue, it's primary energies, the IPPs, it's also the weighted average cost of capital. So I'm saying it's a complex dispensation, but I fully agree with you that those considerations should look into, amongst others, if you like, the position of coal and South Africa's attitude towards this natural endowment and how we can exploit it in favor of the South African economy, but also to provide significant relief to low-income household, the middle income, and also industry. So I'm fully with you, and I guess that in the course of that review, we'll have much more robust engagements and ensure that we provide relief and the South African economy can benefit from its endowment.
Thank you. The third supplementary question will be asked by the Honorable Paulson.
Thank you, Chairperson. The South African Local Government Association argues that 50 kilowatt hours of free basic electricity is very little and way below the 350 kilowatt hours required to yield meaningful socio-economic benefits. In addition, registers of indigent households are out of date. What is being done to ensure that municipalities make the indigent aware that they qualify for free basic electricity? And what is being done to ensure that those who are recipients of free basic electricity are indeed indigent and prevent those with means from enjoying free basic electricity? I know you said you are working on it. We'd like to know, what are you doing? Thank you very much.
Thank you. The Honorable Minister.
Thank you very much, Honorable Paulson. Absolutely correct, your observation. I made the point earlier on that the allocation of 50 kilowatt hour is 21 years old, and there has been significant reconfiguration of the South African electricity complex, so it requires a substantial review. What that number is, I said, is a subject of that science. What is the kind of evidence that will support the new ceiling? And of course, remember that it must be supported by somewhere else. So there's going to be fiscal support to the poor. So it's a very dynamic, if you like, equation that requires our collective resolution. And the second point you are making, absolutely right. I think that the challenges on the free basic electricity and its ability to achieve the kind of objective it desires, it's emblematic of the challenges of local government. Just their inability to have a transversal platform that allows us to ensure that we account for first who is indigent, and also to ensure that that support reaches this household. I made the point earlier on, National Treasury provides that support to 10 million households, but only 2 million are receiving it. So it's important that we are able to have a standardized approach on how we are going to provide that, but also use a current technology of accounting for these allocations that we are providing to low-income households. So I'm just saying that it's part of that bigger conversation. And I'm sure there are ideas that you want to share with us. We'll work with local government. Like I said, it's an indispensable feature of the resolution of this question going forward. Thanks, Chair.
Thank you, Minister. The last supplementary question will be asked by the Honorable Milam.
Thank you, House Chairperson. Minister, the scourge of illegal connections arises because municipalities, Eskom, and the department have failed to connect households to the grid quickly enough. Most illegal users, the people connecting through Izinyokas, are likely to qualify for free basic electricity. Two challenges need to be dealt with. Firstly, the matter of generating sufficient electricity to meet increasing demand as households are connected. And secondly, actually ensuring that these households are registered for free basic electricity. We have massive under-registration of indigent consumers. Will the Minister incorporate registration for free basic electricity into the Integrated National Electrification Program? If so, what are the plans in this regard? And if not, why not? Thank you, Chair.
The Honorable the Minister.
No, thank you very much, Honorable Milam. Just to make sure that there are significant dangers in misdiagnosing a problem, because we are going to arrive at misplaced outcomes. So the challenges that are confronting us, if you come to think of it, it's not necessarily Izinyoka. Izinyoka or illegal connections, they contribute toward load reduction. The pressure that is placed on the distribution infrastructure. The issue of free basic electricity, one makes an assumption that you are connected, you are known, can be identified, and therefore you are deserving of this allocation. So it talks to the point I made earlier on of the inability of local authorities to be able to identify those households that qualify, and also to put systems in place to ensure that the deserving indeed do get this benefit. And you find that those allocations that comes in a form of a grant, they got to be misdirected to other areas of needs and demand in the local authority. So it is important that we are able to resolve that question, how you identify them, who qualifies, how you identify them, and ensure that the benefit flows to them. So as we speak now, the 10 million versus 2 million that are receiving suggests that you are not sitting with a money problem now. The fiscus is supporting this deserving household, but these deserving households are not receiving that benefit. So that's not a relationship with Izinyoka. It's a quite different conversation that you must have, but it's about the ability of municipalities and Eskom, by the way, is not absolved from this problem, to ensure that the poor are able to receive that benefit. And I think technology is going to allow us an opportunity to provide that benefit to the poor. And then the second conversation is how we're going to expand access and ensure that those newcomers into the grid also benefit from this. The issues of Izinyokas deals with illegality and the pressure on the system, and
thank you, Honorable Minister.
Load reduction.
Honourable members, question number 267 has been asked by the Honourable Mente Nkuna to the Minister of Finance. The question is whether National Treasury promulgates a standardised rate per child for scholar transport costs and school feeding schemes. I've been informed that the Deputy Minister, the Honourable Sarupan, will be answering this question on behalf of the Minister. The Honourable Deputy Minister.
Thank you very much, Honourable House Chair. Honourable House Chair, the National Treasury plays no role in promulgating rates for scholar transport, nor for the National School Nutrition Program. The Department of Basic Education is best placed to respond to this on the National School Nutrition Program, and the National Department of Transport best placed to respond to this in regards to scholar transport. Thank you very much.
The first supplementary question will be asked by the Honourable Mente Nkuna.
Thank you, House Chair. House Chair, this is a problem we're facing in South Africa, highest levels of incompetency, because a minister receives a question, sees that there are sister companies or rather departments that must assist him in providing an answer. He doesn't do it. He comes here to tell us that it's not his department. After how many days? That is not acceptable, and he must go and do his work. He must go and ask the sister departments to provide the answers that are asked from him, because he is the custodian of the budget of the state. Therefore, whatever rates that are determined by provinces are coming from Treasury. Number two, this is, I'm the one that asked the question, so my time is more than the others. Number two, House Chair, in the nutritious program, we pay less than R3. Deputy Minister and any other minister, but Wimby and pay more than that. Yet, as when you expect a service provider to buy your tank a carpet to no milli get R3. Number two, is scholar transport. We pay far less than R10 umntana. Ngeyiphi ibhasi le izawumaintainwa ingabangi ingozi nge-R10. How do we expect service providers to give us buses and comfortable for our children if we pay such a ridiculous amount? Then number three, in South Africa, we pay more than R500 for feed prisoner a day. What are our priorities in this country? What are the priorities? Are we prioritizing the life and future of our children, or are we prioritizing badala imali for ongowankulu abafida prisons and everywhere else? And then the minister must bring the answer in writing in 14 days. Thank you.
Thank you, Honourable Mente. Honourable Deputy Minister, before you take the floor, Honourable Mente, may I advise that on the first issue, and I understand your sentiment, that specific problem is also addressed through the review of the Rules Subcommittee. Because as you indicate, the executive is given prior notice. So let's build something along the lines that they must then tap into the knowledge of their colleagues when answering. Honourable Deputy Minister, is there a response?
Yes, I just would like to address, the honourable member said that I'd take my kids to an expensive school. I don't have any children, so I'm not quite sure which school they're going to. But I'm aware that the Honourable Malema does, of course, have his children in a private school, and I'm sure they're privately transported as well. And I'm sure that the resources that he's diverted there, he can donate to the Treasury, and we'll put it into the National Scholar Transport Program. Thank you.
Thank you. The second supplementary question will be asked by the Honourable Mashwanyane. Honourable Mahotwe.
Thank you, House Chair. You know, House Chair, we are here to serve the people of this country. Let us not come here and be clownish, like this minister who's clownish. When a question is being asked and a statement is being made that you are taking your kids, they don't mean him. Is he the only minister here in this country? We are giving an example.
Thank you.
At your level, you should be knowing.
Thank you, Honourable Mahotwe.
If this is how the GNU is going to conduct itself, through clueless ministers like this one,
Honorable
Heading a
Mahot.
very important portfolio of finance. Honestly, you're not going anywhere.
Thank you. Honorable Mahotwe, I think the difficulty came in right from the start when the Deputy Minister indicated that this is not part of his department's responsibilities. As I said, I understand your frustrations. He has responded. The Honorable Maswangyane. Honorable Mkalipi. Is that on the same matter?
Thank you very much, Honorable Chair. Honorable Chair, we understand that in the DA, they have to apply for a position and they represent the jackets. But when the Honorable Mentor referred to him, doesn't mean him as a person.
I think we got that explanation.
Written to you, we have written to you a letter stating of the quality answers that we are getting from these ministers.
Yeah.
That are daily, are just
Thank
getting
you.
and drop. No, I'm not done. You can't do
Yeah,
that.
but you're repeating, unfortunately, the same point.
That. I'm not done. How do you know what is my next word? How do you
Is
know
there a
that?
point of order in terms of the rules?
Order.
Okay, let me hear it.
Why are you anticipating what I want to say? Are you now a mind reader? Are you now a mind reader?
Please get to your point of order.
That you forever want to abuse us, want to sit on.
Please get to your point of order. Honorable Member.
He haven't answered the national chair. You have given this question. We have written to you on numerous times at that office of the speaker. Can we demand a proper answer from this guy as the custodian of national treasury?
Thank you, Honorable Member. I think I've already expressed my sentiment on it.
On a point
Firstly,
of
in
order,
terms
Chair.
of the rules, I'm still dealing with this point of order. I'll come to you.
I'm talking. I'm saying point of order. I'm talking. What's your problem? I'm talking.
No, that's not the case.
No, Honorable Malema, you have not been recognized.
I'm saying point of order.
Honorable Malema, please mute your mic and raise your hand on the virtual platform. If you want to get my attention, I'm addressing the Honorable Mkalipi's point of order now,
I'm
and
saying
then
point of
thereafter,
order, Chair.
yeah, my apologies. Honorable Member, I've already at the outset said, I understand the sentiment and the frustration that a member of the executive comes and say, I cannot give a substantive answer to this question because National Treasury is not responsible for that function. No, and I've already indicated that my advice would be that we should deal with that as part of the review of the rules. The difficulty comes in that you now expect of me to force the Deputy Minister to give a substantive answer in the circumstances where he's already indicated it's not Treasury's area of responsibility. In the circumstances, it would be unfair of me to expect him to give an answer which he clearly doesn't have. So that is the ruling. You're welcome to once again express your frustration in a letter to the Speaker. I think she's well aware of that frustration. And my plea once again is, if we want to force ministers, if a matter is strictly not within their portfolio, to tap into the knowledge of their colleagues, let's build that into the rules. I've recognized the Honorable Michalakis, and then I'll come to the virtual platform if necessary.
We must be attended to as well here. What necessary? What do you mean? We're
Thank you,
all in
House
Parliament
Chair.
here.
House
Virtual
Chair.
or fiscal, we're all in Parliament.
House Chair, there are rules in the House for a very good reason, and that is to ensure that the House does not, in the end,
Chair,
lose
no,
all
no.
decorum.
We're not
Chair,
going to be
you are
harassed by
unfair.
this white here.
Honorable members.
I was before this one.
No, honorable
Because-
members, I recognize the Honorable Michalakis before the Honorable Malema unmuted, which is not in terms of the rules allowed.
House Chair, you are
Honorable member,
unfair.
please take your seat.
No, you are unfair.
I've already indicated that I will go to the Honorable Malema.
He was before him.
No, unfortunately, he was not. He was not.
No.
Please take your seat so that we can proceed with the business of the day. Honorable Michalakis, you're on the floor.
Thank you, House Chairperson. House Chairperson, there are rules in the House for a very specific reason, and if members expect to be respected, they should show the very same respect. Now, the members have referred to the ministers and the deputy minister on the front bench of the DA as this guy. I've also heard several shut-ups. Apart from the fact that we should reciprocate the respect, it is also very important that if that is the manner in which the members are going to address other members, that their points of order and their points of debate are going to be taken with the exact same contempt as which they have shown to the front bench of this side. I would like to ask that you please rule on the comment made by the honourable member as referring to the DA minister as this guy. Thank you.
Thank you. Honourable members, may we, as a general request, say, we all know that the rules say we must trust one another, we must refer to one another in respectful terms. So in future, please use minister, deputy minister, Mr. whatever. That is as a general guidance. Thank you. Let me go to the virtual platform. Is there any hands raised there?
You can't say there is any hands raised there. You
Thank
can't
you,
see. Are you
Honourable
blind?
Malema.
You can't see there is a hand being raised there when you say, can I see if there is a hand raised there? You can't see. So I'm rising on a point of order here, Chair, that this guy must not speak about my children, must speak about me. If he wants to take me on, he must take me on. I went to a public school. I come from a family which has got nothing. I'm not like him from a privileged family. He must stop being a coward.
Honourable
and
members, let's listen to the Honourable Malema.
He must stop being a coward and fighting children. Don't talk about my children, talk about me. I can attend to you ideologically, theoretically, physically, and otherwise, including outside. Yeah. I'm not responsible for your father giving birth to a brainless
Honourable
child.
Malema.
Stupid minister.
Thank you. Honourable Malema, unfortunately, I don't think that's necessarily a point of order. I understand the sentiment, and once again, members, and this is again a comment in respect of
I'm
question
saying
and
that
answer
boy
sessions.
must not talk about my children. That boy must not talk about my children.
Thank you, Honourable Malema.
He must never go to my children. My children are a no-go area for racists like you and those racists of the DA. I'm not scared of all of you.
Thank
Do
you,
not
Honourable
go to my
Malema.
children and tell that boy never to speak about my children.
Okay, honourable members, the plea once again is to the members of the executive, try and give us substantive answers. It's quite clear that the moment we can't get substantive answers, temperatures rise. B, let's also in our follow-up questions not refer to where, for example, the children or possible children of members of the executive go to school, because it's quite clear from there we go to a position where the Honourable Malema takes a front. So let's proceed with the business of the day, and that's the request to both the members of the executive and the members posing the questions. Let's deal with the substance of the matter. Honourable members, that's how I now dealt with this. We can't take, we're now eating into the time of other members of the executive responding. May I plead with you that we proceed on this basis? Thank you.
House Chair, we need your undertaking that the written reply from the minister will reach us within 48 hours.
Yeah, but well, the difficulty is I can't compel a minister who's already indicated that it's not his responsibility. What we will do is engage with the leader of government business to get to place that specific question on the written platform, for written questions, and ask for a response from the responsible minister. I think that's the best I can do in the circumstances. Thank you. I've recognized the Honourable Mashwanyane. Is there a follow-up?
Thank you, Chair. My follow-up question was based on the main question. But there's something I want to raise. The Constitution, Section 92, subsection 1, 2, 3, stipulate that members of cabinet are accountable collectively and individually to Parliament for the exercise of their powers and performance of their functions. So it's not on that the minister says, I'm not responsible for this. We derive the rules of Parliament. The rules of Parliament are derived from Section 92 of the Constitution. So when you go to the meeting that you are talking about of the rules, you must consider this, because I'm not satisfied in the manner that the Deputy Minister responded to the question.
Thank you. Yeah, that's not really a question. Let me just say this, and you actually agree with my sentiment about the review of the rules. It is unfortunately, of course, also so that we cluster departments, and then the idea is to ask ministers and deputy ministers specifically about their areas of responsibility. But once again, I take the point. Honorable Deputy Minister, I don't know whether you want to respond. There was no real question. Honorable Deputy Minister, did you wish to respond?
No.
No, there was a
House Chair.
question asked, unless there's a point of order for a breach of parliamentary rules. What is that point, Honorable Mote? Honorable Manye, I'll come to you.
No, thank you, House Chair. House Chair, when he attempted to answer the first time, we couldn't hear because there was a lot of noise in the house. So now that the issue has been brought to your attention that he specifically spoke about Honorable Malema's children, I think the honors are on you to ask him if he did. And if indeed he did, he must withdraw.
Yeah.
I think that's the right thing to do. We didn't hear.
Honorable.
Otherwise, we would have called order ourselves. But it's been brought now to your attention, House Chair, that he spoke about the honorable member's children. It's unparliamentary. Now, the honors are on you. Please, House Chair, ask him if indeed he did that. And if he did, he must withdraw. Thank you.
Yeah, thank you, Honorable Member. I've already asked that we proceed after giving a general guidance on the matter. I mean, I can understand the sentiment that we're not to hear make remarks about one another's children, whether that impacts on the integrity and cause aspersions on a specific member. I've not heard that argument being made. So in that sense, unfortunately, in terms of the rules, I can't do. Honorable Deputy Minister, do you want to offer an explanation?
House Chair, if I may, if I have in any way offended any member of the EFF, I withdraw anything that would have offended them. Thank you.
Thank you. Honorable Manye. Order.
Order.
Order, honorable members. Let's listen to the Honorable Manye.
Thank you, Chair. Two things. One, first, let's request the IT people to do something with the sound. Honorable Malema was making very valuable input, but half of what he was saying, he was like speaking from very far, and we know that he's got a very powerful voice, so it must be the IT here. So can the IT look into their things, number one. Number two, Honorable Chair, clearly the expectation that ministers need to rise up to here is to respond to questions. Now, if we don't have the person with the right knowledge, I think the request for 48 hours, in fact, I thought it's 24 hours, but I think the honorable member here from the EFF is being reasonable. He says 48 hours, something that would have happened today. And therefore, it's not unreasonable for the person that hasn't got the answer to tonight phone the right person and get the answer and respond within 48 hours. That's not unreasonable. Therefore, we need your commitment. Otherwise, it means the Parliament is collaborating with the incompetence that we are subjected to.
Yeah, thank you, Honorable Manya. On the first point, yes, let's ask IT to deal with it. On the second point, as the Chief Whip of the official opposition, I would assume you are now also part of that subcommittee for the rules review. So unfortunately, I don't have inherent powers in this chair. I can only do what the rules allow me. So please work in that subcommittee so that when a situation like this arises, if you want an answer from whoever within even a shorter period than 48 hours, that we work to that. Honorable Deputy Chief Whip of the ANC.
Thank you, Honorable House Chairperson. I want to make a proposal for the sake of progress in this meeting. If the Deputy Minister is unable to respond to the question, or any minister is unable to respond to the question can stand over so that the minister can respond to the question, like we did with this one, with this question that will be added to the question session. I think this will assist us to move forward.
I think that's a sensible proposal, apart from the fact that the Deputy Minister has indicated that ultimately it's not a question to be asked to the Minister of Finance. So I think what we must agree is that we will identify the correct minister and then add it to the next question session. Yes, Honourable Member.
Thank you, Honorable House Chair. Honorable House Chair, though the question will stand over, but we can't forever let questions be standing over. These are questions from our constituencies. So the minister, number one, must get a reprimand because they will think this is normal. This is right for their behavior to act like this. We have write letters and there seems no political will from the government of national unity to fix these ministers that are just law unto themselves. So the only way how we can prove to South Africans that this parliament have some level of teeth and accountability and hold ministers to account is that this minister must get a reprimand and he must apologize to the public out there.
Yeah.
Kids are dying on the roads. Kids doesn't have scholar transport. Kids doesn't have food to eat in schools.
Yeah.
For him to just come and bluntly below the belt want to bring in the president of the EFF's kids.
Yeah,
like that.
let's not relitigate that now.
The DAEs.
Yeah, he has now apologized if he offended. Thank you,
To be reprimanded.
Honourable Member. I think the Deputy Chief Whip of the ANC has made a sensible proposal for us to take this forward. Once again, if the subcommittee wishes to give chairs the authority to reprimand ministers if they don't lean on the shoulders or go and tap into the knowledge of their counterparts, build that into the rules. I have the hand of the Honourable Montana on the floor and Honourable Ndlozi on the virtual platform. Honourable Montana, I know you have the right for the next follow-up question. My apologies, but is there a point of order?
No, Chair, I think that I wanted to deal with the question, but I wanted to, on a lighter note, the House to mandate me to speak to the Deputy Minister on the beauty of being a father. Can we take such a resolution?
No, Honourable Member, let's try and stay relevant.
No, I think it's important for the country, Chair.
Yeah, no, thank you.
You may not have a child,
Yeah,
but you are a father, and I think it's important, Chair.
yeah, thank you.
Am I
Honourable,
mandated, Chair? Is the House mandating me on that, Chair?
Honourable Montana, no, you're not assisting. Please take your seat. Honourable Ndlozi on the virtual platform.
Thanks, House Chair.
Order, honourable members. There was a complaint that we can't hear the people on the members on the virtual platform. Let's give them their opportunity.
Can I proceed, Chair?
Yes, Honourable Ndlozi.
No, two things are important here, House Chairperson, and I would request that you must read the question for yourself. There are serious grounds that the refusal to answer doesn't have grounds. But there's also the question office in Parliament. It couldn't have processed a question to a wrong minister. and even if you changed the rules, whatever the case might be, there's the 7th Parliament administration will have to also be questioned in, could it have really posed a wrong or sent a wrong question to a wrong minister? I think we might have to have an accountability in that regard. But finally, House Chair, I agree, let the question stand over. The Minister of Finance can answer this question. It's clear. It can be answered by the Minister of Finance. The grounds that it does not belong in their ambit is incorrect. And I would say that pay attention to specifically the last sentence of that question. Thanks.
Thank you. Please just assist by now muting those on the virtual platform. Honorable Ndlozi, the difficulty I'm having, and I'm not obviously in a position to also prescribe to members how to phrase their questions, but the original question simply asked whether National Treasury promulgates. And then the minister said, no, we don't. It's not our responsibility. We've now agreed that you can work with the questions office to redraft it and then ask it to the Ministerial whose responsibility it is. So in that regard, I think we are now done with this matter. Honorable Maotwe, we must continue. There's other important questions on the order paper. Is there one final input?
This one is also very important, Chair. House Chair, because the minister did not prepare the answer for this question, 1. 2, he did not read the Constitution as Dr. Maswanganye read it for him there. As a sign of apology to the people of South Africa, can we ask the minister to donate his salary, 1 month salary?
Yeah.
5
Honorable Maotwe. No, you're now on the point of.
Chair, as a sign of a minister that says, I sincerely apologize.
Honorable Maotwe.
It's not enough.
Thank you. Please now take your seat. And we're now done with this question. Let me just remind members that Rule 134(5)(b) makes it very clear that when we place questions on the order paper, they must relate to the matters for which cabinet members are officially responsible. As I've indicated, if you want to place the additional burdens on ministers, if you ask a question which is not strictly within their responsibility, let's change the rules. Honorable members, we move on.
Chairperson, I have my hand up.
Honorable Ndlozi, is there a new matter?
It's not a new matter, Chair. I'm differing with your interpretation of the question. I'm saying to you, read the last sentence of the question. It says, if so, what? If not, what is the position in this case? If so, what is the standard of rate or amount in each case? So if it's not National Treasury that promulgates, what is National Treasury's case? What is National Treasury's view? Because these money,
I understand your
yeah. So no, let me finish. Just your patience. You could have differed, number one, with the fact that the question is posed to a wrong minister. It is not, because the question asks for National Treasury's view of those rates. If it's not them that promulgates them, what is their view of those rates? A responsible treasury knows that in the end, it's responsible ultimately for the entire division of revenue. I'm saying that it's not possible for Parliament's question session to have sent a question to a wrong minister. But the last sentence, 2 sentences tell you, if you're not the one that promulgates, can you tell us, what do you make of those rates as National Treasury? Are they enough? Are they properly handled? Give a view of people who are busy with state forfeits. Okay. That's simple. He's wrong not to have answered. He's wrong to have dismissed it. He's wrong to have said it does not belong in his ambit.
Thank you, Honorable.
It can't be an answer.
Thank you, and we get the sentiment. We've already agreed that this question will stand over, that it will be, if necessary, redrafted and directed to the correct minister. Honorable members, I think we must now move on. There's other questions we want to be dealt with. Honorable Manye is at a new point.
Chairperson, I think the whole objective here is to serve the people of South Africa. As we do, and we try as much as we can to respect the rules. There's too much noise here. We try to respect the rules. Now, if, for instance, the point that Honorable Rose is raising here is a very, very important point, that the response that we are processing is a response based on a wrong understanding of the issue. Now that the issue has been properly framed, that actually in the first instance, this is a financial question in the first instance, and it's actually quite absurd that National Treasury has got no response on a financial question. To promulgate rates is a financial issue. That's the one thing. But the other thing that Honorable Rose is raising is that not only is it a financial issue to promulgate rates, the question here is whoever would have promulgated the rates, what is the view of National Treasury if they say that is not that? But therefore, the issue of standing over of the question was based on the wrong premise. This is the issue. So we're asking that now that we've got the right premise, can the minister be given another opportunity to give a crack at this question? Thank you.
Honorable Manye, no, we've already agreed that we will move on. Honorable Skosana, is that on a new point?
No, Chair, I was saying you have made a ruling on this matter.
Yeah.
So can we please move?
Thank you.
Members who are not satisfied, they've got the right to escalate the matter to the Rules
Yeah.
Committee, please.
Thank you. Honorable members, question number 235 has been asked by the Honorable Khadebe to the Minister of Agriculture. The question is about plans to encourage and upskill women in the agricultural sector so as to ensure equal participation in the sector. The Honorable the Minister.
Thank you, House Chair. I'd like to thank the Honorable Khadebe.
Point of order, Chair.
What is the point of order, Honorable Manye?
Now that the question is going to, no, let me leave it, because what I wanted to do, Chair.
Yeah, thank
that
you.
When we submit the question.
If you leave it, you'll
No,
assist.
No, Chair. Now, what I wanted to do is that perhaps what should happen, because the issue here is to make sure that we get the answers, that the people that have been billed to ask supplementary questions are allowed to do so that when the response comes, it must address
No,
everything.
supplementaries must follow the answer. Thank you. Honorable the Minister of Agriculture.
Thank you very much, House Chairperson, and thank you very much to the Honorable Khadebe for the question. Obviously, there's a lot more we have to do to ensure the upskilling of women and the greater participation of women in agriculture. But as part of its transformation trajectory, the Department of Agriculture has introduced measures to empower and mainstream designated groups, including women, in the sector. The department remains fundamentally committed to the empowerment of women, and thus will continue to implement the following initiatives. Firstly, the Women's Entrepreneurs Awards, which is a departmental flagship program that has been implemented over 2 decades in conjunction with the provincial departments of agriculture. This has benefited over 300 women producers and is designed specifically to promote and encourage women participation in the sector by publicly awarding their efforts and contribution towards food security, job creation, poverty alleviation, and economic growth. The National Comprehensive Policy on Producer Development Support aims to regulate and guide the provision of support to various categories of producers, thereby contributing to sustainable and competitive agriculture. This policy stipulates and upholds conditions which enable all previously disadvantaged citizens and targeted groups, including women, youth, and people with disabilities, by ensuring that at least 50% of women, 40% of youth, and 10% of persons with disabilities are supported. The norms and standards and inclusion of designated groups, the NSDG, is a tool used by the department to implement and provide guidelines for setting measurable targets for departmental programs to prioritize designated groups and to articulate against prescribed targets. The NSDG advocates for departmental programs to benefit at least 50% women, 40% to youth, and 10% to persons with disabilities, and is thus enforced through departmental program approval committees. The training and capacity building part of the question that you asked, Honorable Hadebe, is dealt with through an intervention administered under the Comprehensive Agricultural Support Program, CASP. 10% of the CASP funding is dedicated to training, provision of mentorship, and placement of young agricultural graduates in farms for practical exposure. In all of these programs, the department endeavors to maintain a 50% target for women. Is this enough? No, it is not enough. And I would recommend that all members of the House, and I've brought a copy for the Honorable Hadebe today, read the report done by the the Commission for Gender Equality, which was released in July 2024, which is a comprehensive look at the role of women in agriculture and makes some good recommendations that the department is digesting. The report is called Do Women Reap What They Sow? And the Experiences of Women Farm Workers. And it makes some very sound suggestions about what we could be doing as a department, but certainly as a country, to ensure that women play a greater role in agriculture. And I'm happy to provide the honourable member with a copy of that. Thank you.
Thank you. Honourable members, I've been informed that the Honourable Inkosi Sebkulu will take charge of the first follow-up question on behalf of Honourable Hadebe. Honourable member.
Thank you, Chairperson. Honourable Minister, sounds very intensive what you've just responded to, the question that has been raised by Honourable Hadebe. But currently, we are having the biggest challenge, Honourable Minister, in the department, where even the land that has been long redistributed has not been seen to be taken off the ground for production. My then question would be, having committed yourself or your department on the matter, are these black women going to be farmers? Are they going to be provided with equipment, including mechanization, as it has been the stumbling block in getting redistributed land to produce successfully by farmers? Are the women going to get the equipment so that they successfully work? Thank you.
The Honourable the Minister.
Thank you very much, Honourable Sebekulu, for the question, and Nkosi Sebekulu for the question. Thank you very much. As you would know from the various interactions at portfolio committee level, there is a large focus within the department on making sure that we are able to provide the tools necessary to make a success of land and agriculture that has been handed over to beneficiaries. It is not good enough just to simply provide the land and then say to people, well, go on and get on with becoming successful farmers. And that's precisely why through CASP, Elima Leseta, and other programs, we focus on providing not only the support from an extension officer point of view and agricultural advice, but also to try and provide equipment where necessary. Obviously, I believe there needs to be a lot more done to ensure that we're focusing on three key aspects of these projects: sustainability, viability, and profitability. We need to, when we hand over this equipment and this assistance to female farmers, to make sure that they are able to then enter the value chain through market linkages, access to the value chain, so they can have a meaningful contribution. And this means then that the department can move on to other beneficiaries. If you're providing the same beneficiaries year after year with the same assistance, are we really doing what we should be doing to grow women participation in the sector? I would say no. So those three aspects in providing equipment and ensuring that we're providing the assistance, sustainability, viability, and profitability are going to have to guide the department's work in that regard. Thank you.
Thank you. The second supplementary question will be asked by the Honourable Ndalane.
Thank you, Honourable House Chair. The growth in agriculture is considered to be generally more effective in reducing poverty than an equivalent amount of growth generated outside of agriculture. Considering that the vast majority of the poor who are also food insecure are people located in rural areas with poor investment and infrastructure, what measures will the department be introducing to invest in infrastructure in communal land and rural farming areas to address the uneven development in the sector. I thank you, House Chairperson.
The Honorable the Minister.
Thank you. An excellent question from the Honorable Indaleni. Thank you very much for that. What we've got to do is make sure that when we are investing in areas, we're investing in infrastructure that is going to actually be catalytic. Far too many times we go in with projects that look really good on paper, but are not really making a big impact on the ground there. And it is something that we're going to have to focus on. There is also going to have to be a lot of synergy between the Department of Agriculture and other departments. For instance, Department of Transport, Department of Cooperative Governance and Traditional Affairs, because there are linkages. Farmers need to be able to get their products, whether they're small or large farmers, to markets. They need to be able to get them to places where they can sell them. But they can't do that with impassable roads and other obstacles that currently inhibit them being able to do so. For instance, bad roads in citrus areas mean that your soft fruits are very badly damaged before you can get them to a sustainable market. So yes, we have to invest more in infrastructure, but it's going to have to be a whole of government approach that focuses on leveraging both the Transport Committee, the Cooperative Governance and Traditional Affairs Committees, so we have a coordinated way to ensure that the infrastructure projects that we roll out are sustainable, but also catalytic in nature, and that departments are not doing things in isolation when we could be working together in a more joined up government way to be able to ensure that these projects, infrastructure particularly, has a catalytic effect on being able to give access to market for farmers in a far more sustainable way. Thank you, Chair.
Thank you. The third supplementary question will be asked by the Honorable Smith.
Thank you, Honorable House Chair. Minister, in order to upskill and empower young prospective men and women of all races who want to start a career in the agricultural sector, it is essential that South Africa must have sufficient, well-accessible and well-functioning agricultural learning institutions, such as Elsenburg in the Western Cape. We know that there are such institutions in other provinces, but many of them are in a dire state. Does the Minister agree that intervention is required to improve these other institutions' level of learning, as well as establishing possible new institutions of agricultural learning in as many of the other provinces as well? Thank you, Honourable Minister.
Thank you, the Honourable Minister.
Thank you very much to the Honourable Member for the question, House Chair. And I would say I agree completely with my right honourable friend in terms of the agricultural colleges. If we are wanting to grow the knowledge base within the agricultural sector in South Africa, then we've got to be serious about investing in the education, training and development of those people who wish to enter the sector. And whilst Elsenburg is certainly in very good state and is a good example, sadly, some of our other agricultural colleges have been left behind in terms of infrastructure maintenance, and the grounds have been left in very poor condition. There is currently a move to bring these in line with our department, and we would obviously look to play our role in assisting in both the physical but also the curriculum that would be required. And of course, there's going to have to be, as I said in the previous question, a greater synergy as well with departments like higher education, with science and technology, to be able to empower these campuses to produce farmers of the future. This is important. We also then need to address what are shortages and shortfalls with the agricultural sector in South Africa, and then also encourage school leavers into those particular professions or learnerships. I use by way of example the shortage of veterinary surgeons that we have in South Africa. Biosecurity remains one of the biggest impediments to us being able to expand on current trade agreements with other countries, but also to expand our horizons to new markets around the world. And if we don't get on top of biosecurity, it's going to continue to hold us back. To get on top of it, we need scientists, plant scientists, we need animal scientists and veterinary surgeons so that they can assist us. I'm very proud to say we have already announced as a department the creation of a new veterinary services campus at another university. We're hoping to make some announcements about others.
Thank you.
But we have to focus on creating and
Thank you,
protecting the
Minister.
farmers of the future. Thank you.
The last supplementary question will be asked by the Honorable Ghana.
Minister, the agricultural sector has a broad-based Black economic empowerment sector code. How will you, as a minister, implement the Agri BEE and blended finance to ensure the inclusion of Black women in the agricultural sector value chain?
Thank you. The Honorable Minister.
Thank you very much, House Chair, and thanks to the Honourable Ghana for the question. I've already announced some of the programs that the department has in place to empower women in the sector. They're also, one of the biggest impediments to women accessing farming is access to finance. There is, because of the patriarchal society that still dominates in South Africa, a lot of women really battle to access finance. And it is also particularly endemic in the rural areas where people lack the security of tenure to be able to secure finance from the traditional means. Working with the Land Bank through the blended finance scheme, which is a partnership between the department, the Land Bank, and other financial institutions, we're looking at ways to make it easier for people who are not able to access traditional finance, particularly women who are a strong focus of this particular program, to be able to access that finance so that they can overcome that capital impediment of being able to get into the sector. Farming is economics, farming is science. It is not just a matter of putting seeds in the ground and expecting great yields. There is a great deal of capital investment that needs to go into making a successful, commercially viable farm and farming operation. And to overcome that hurdle, particularly for women and historically disadvantaged individuals, the Agri BEE fund, the blended finance scheme, all focuses on doing that. The agriculture and agro-processing master plan as well, which is the master plan for the agriculture sector, also focuses very strongly on the role of women and historically disadvantaged individuals and uses a public-private partnership model to be able to ensure that there is effective transformation within the sector. Thank you very much.
Thank you, honourable members. Question number 216 has been asked by the Honourable Gancho to the Minister of Forestry, Fisheries and the Environment. The question is asking how the department's plan to create work opportunities and full-time jobs aligns with its efforts to restore ecosystems. The Honourable the Minister.
Thank you, House Chairperson. Department of Forestry, Fisheries and Environment, the DFFE, implements various job creation initiatives under the Extended Public Works Program, the EPWP, as part of its mandate, which includes ecosystem restoration. In the upcoming medium-term expenditure framework, MTEF, the DFFE will create 93,301 work opportunities, resulting in 67,650 full-time equivalents across all 9 provinces. These initiatives are undertaken in collaboration with entities and private sector partners to meet the mandate of the DFFE. A core focus of the GNU is economic growth, and we need to move towards sustainable jobs that will endure. This can be generated from building new, greener economies as we progress the just energy transition. The DFFE possesses the institutional capacity to manage the implementation of these initiatives across all provinces through its branches, environmental programs and forestry management. The 2 branches work in tandem, utilizing a combination of approaches to deliver their programs effectively as follows. Environmental programs in 3 regions, that is Limpopo, Mpumalanga, and the Northwest provinces. The region 2 is the Eastern Cape, Western Cape, and KwaZulu-Natal provinces, as well as working on fire, and region 3, which is the Free State, Gauteng, and Northern Cape provinces, and also forestry management, the provincial model reporting to the national office. I have a table here that I will submit to you. It represents the implementation plan for the next 3 years. The total opportunities Work opportunities in the next 3 years will be approximately 30,000 in the environmental programs for the 3 years. In forestry, approximately 1,100 for each of the 3 years. And then the total full-time equivalents over the next 3 years will be 22,500 approximately per year. On the environmental programs, 22,000 per year. Forestry, approximately 550 per year. And then the total budget allocation is 2.7 million, 2.8 million, and 2.7 billion, 2.8 billion, and 3 billion in the next 3 years. The branch environmental programs allocated through the delivery of the following environmental outputs: hectares of invasive plants, the species will be cleared 250,000, 300,000, and 300,000 over the next 3 years. The number of wetland rehabilitation will be 23 in the first year, followed by 70 in the second year and 70 in the next year. And then the percentages of wildfire suppressed, 90% over each of the next 3 years. These employment targets are primarily aimed at addressing the core environmental program mandate of restoring ecosystems in terrestrial and conservation areas to conserve biodiversity and protect water resources. To a limited extent, given the current budgetary pressures, the DFFA still supports environmental monitors who assist with general environmental monitoring support in conservation areas. The jobs linked to the branch forestry management reflected in the targets indicated above assist in supporting the management of community areas. Thank you, House Chairperson.
Thank you, Honourable Minister. The first supplementary question will be asked by the Honourable Gancho.
Thank you, Honorable Chair. Honorable Minister, to what extent are current policies and programs contributing to the shift towards a circular economy? And which specific interventions are currently being implemented to achieve this change? And what measures are used to assess the effects of these measures on job creation and environmental sustainability? Thank you.
Honourable Minister.
Thank you very much for the question. Our Waste Management Bureau is working on a new way for us to manage waste. As we know, there are major problems in all of our municipalities across the country. And so what the idea is that we would be able to manage waste right from when it is disposed of through the process so that we can actually recycle it and reuse it over time. So there is a model that is being built, and in the near future, we will be able to pilot that model. And once we've done that, we'll be able to identify where the areas are for improvement. For example, we know that in municipalities across the country, there are waste sites that are catch fire, etc., and they emit greenhouse gases, etc. So that's the circular economy that we are seeking to find. I was very recently in Côte d'Ivoire with other African environment ministers where we were discussing the problem of pollution across our continent, because obviously there's a lot of pollution, waste pollution that's happening, and also, for example, refrigerators that are dumped in Africa that we need to attend to. So those are one of the major initiatives that we're looking at. Also, if we look at new green economic activities, the department is focusing on building eco-tourism, conservation, and our harbour economies in particular as key areas for economic growth and job creation. South Africa's competitive advantage is our very rich biodiversity, which offers unique opportunities to develop eco-tourism ventures and create jobs while protecting our natural environments. The department is also looking at leveraging this advantage by driving investment into sectors that promote sustainability and conservation, especially in areas where biodiversity is under threat, which we see across our country, the region, and Africa in particular. If we look, for example, more closely at ecotourism and conservation, they are directly linked to job creation and economic activity, particularly in our harbour economies. There are many opportunities for communities there, for small-scale fishers and tourism operators, also focusing, for example, on our natural assets such as parks and marine life. And then, of course, we have our Fishing for Freedom campaign, where we're wanting to reconnect communities to the ocean economy that have been disconnected from it. So in particular also—
Honourable Minister, your time is now
okay,
expired.
I was getting very excited. Thank you.
The second supplementary question will be asked by the Honourable De Blok van Skeltinga.
Thank you, Chair, and thank you, Minister, for your comprehensive responses thus far. In terms of job creation, one of the most imperiled sectors under your purview is the fishing industry. Not only our commercial operations, but also our local coastal communities who have lived off of the sea for many, many generations. Minister, some of these communities are very unhappy with the outcome of the latest fishing rights allocation processes and are currently not able to fish because of a lack of rights or the provision of rights that are not economically sustainable. In addition, the condition of many of our fishing harbors is dire, and you've already alluded to that. What is the Minister going to do to empower our small-scale and local fishermen and women? Thank you.
Honourable Minister.
Thank you very much. The fisheries environment is very contested space, as you mentioned, and the reason for that is because our fish stock is very severely depleted. And the root cause here is to ask ourselves, what is causing the depletion of our fish? Is it climate change? Is it illegal fishing? What actually is going on? Because the numbers looking quite horrendous. On the small-scale fishers, yes, indeed, there's a lot of appeals now on the licenses that were issued, because, as I mentioned before, it's hotly contested space. There's only so much fish that can go around. I have a number of appeals on my desk at the moment that I am looking at. As I mentioned previously, our Fishing for Freedom campaign is basically to connect and reconnect communities to the ocean because they've been disconnected from them. And what we find, we have terrible deprivation in communities that are close to the ocean because this has happened. For generations, people have been fishing. Licenses were not given to the fishers, and then they got disconnected, and that's been very dire. So my commitment into the future is that when we consider license applications, we must take into consideration the fact that what happened in the past was that there were fishers who were unable to navigate the application process because they were simply unable to read. And we need to make it easier for our fisher communities to be able to access the license. But of course, that process never ends, and so there will be opportunities as we move forward. I just want to also mention that this forms part of a broader program in our department where we are looking at accelerating economic growth, because that is the greatest requirement in our economy at the moment. We need more growth so that we can get jobs, get more money into the fisc, and then we won't have the problem of budget cuts. We also have, for example, I'd like to mention, we have our KISS strategy, which is the Kruger, Kirstenbosch, Isimangaliso Icon Status Strategy, which basically aims to look at our Apex Park, the Kruger Park, the Apex Botanical Garden, Kirstenbosch, and our Apex Marine Reserve, Isimangaliso, and make sure that we can make these the best they can possibly be, and then get people living nearby to participate in the economy by being able to access our natural resources and leverage off them for economic growth, just like we want to do with the fishing communities. Thank you.
Thank you. The third supplementary question will be asked by the Honourable A.T. Temba.
Thank you, House Chair. Minister, according to the State SA, South Africa expanded unemployment rate for the second quarter of 2024 is 42.6%. This equates to 11.1 million unemployed people in South Africa. In the second quarter of 2024, the number of unemployed persons decreased by 92,000. In South Africa, unemployment affects different race groups, disproportionately, disproportionately, with South Africans carrying the largest burden. What are the reasons that leads the minister to think that having a target to create 67,650 jobs by March 2027 will contribute to the reducing unemployment in South Africa? I thank you.
Honourable Minister.
Thank you very much. As I mentioned previously, is that what we don't want are jobs that are just going to be there for a very short time and then they're going to disappear as the budget gets smaller and smaller because the economy doesn't grow. What we want to do is to grow the economy, and that's the most important thing on all of the departments in the government of national unity. We've already agreed that is the top priority. So, for example, my department is looking at how do we take our natural resources that we are custodians of, and how do we leverage off that for job-generating economic growth. That is the thing. The number that we mentioned earlier is a small number, But that's really only number that we can get because we have a limited budget. But obviously, if the economy grows, then all ships get lifted, and then everybody in the country can be better off. And of course, the most important people that we need to focus on are people that have been left behind, people that have not been able to enjoy the fruits of our democracy because they have not been able to connect to the economy. And that is the most important thing. Now, if you look, for example, at the board of the Kruger Park, for example, you have millions of people living along the border of the park that do not actually benefit enough from the natural assets that are there. So what my department is looking at through our KISS strategy and our other strategies is basically to say, how do you then generate virtuous economies there? How do you get more people into conservation? How do you get younger people to love our natural resources and want to protect them rather than to hurt them? Because we've got some negative industries going on, for example, where we've got poaching, etc. So if you create a virtuous new cycle of new economies in the green space, you can get people into those jobs, and then they would never want to allow anybody to poach anything because it belongs to all of us. Our natural assets belong to everyone. And I have been speaking to the Minister of Basic Education to say that every single child from a very, very young age should learn at school about our amazing biodiversity, all the animals, the wildlife that we have that other countries do not have. Our African lion, for example, it's a magnificent animal, and they must love it. And if they do, they will learn to say, well, I want to go into conservation, I want to get into a green job, I want to go and protect what we have. And that's how you create virtuous economic cycles in our country. And we can do that everywhere because that is our competitive advantage. We have amazing biodiversity, and we can leverage hugely off that. Not only the wildlife, but also the plant life.
Thank you, Honourable Minister.
Resources. Thank you.
The last supplementary question will be asked by the Honourable Ms. M. Dlamini.
Thank you, Chair. The minister has to be realistic. The department in the past year has failed to create jobs. It has about 754 posts, of which 211 are funded. However, no appointment has been done so far. As the EFF, we agree that there is a need to restore ecosystems, conserve land, protect water resources, fight poaching, and restore indigenous forests and plantations. How can he create about 100,000 jobs in 3 years? Really, it's a dream. What is the staff establishment of each entity? And how much budget is he going to need, considering that the austerity measures done by the very same government? Thank you.
Honourable Minister.
Thank you. I can make all that information available to you, and I'll get my office to do that for you. I think very crucially, as we said before, is we have budget cuts because our economy is not growing. And the reason why our economy is not growing is because there's not enough economic activity. That is how the cycle works. So it is not possible for government to actually create more jobs when there's not enough tax coming into the fisc. The only way you can get more tax into the pot is basically to generate activity, and then you get the tax, and then you have the money, and then you have enough in your budget, and then you can employ people. That's the cycle. But what is happening is that the numbers are going down. My department's been cut by 3.5 billion rand over the next 3 years because there is not enough money to go around. And the reason for that is because the economy isn't growing. And as I said before, you say, well, oh, is he dreaming? Is it hope? Whatever. Well, isn't that what we have? Now we have the opportunity, because the opportunity has now come. The people of South Africa have decided we want a different government for the future, and they got one. And now here we are. We're a government of national unity, and we're all focused the same way. Is that we all have great plans for the future, because we don't have much opportunity. Because if it carries on going like this, what will happen is that 1 billion rand per day that is paid for interest will get bigger and bigger and bigger. What we have to do, and the people of South Africa decided to do that, is to break that cycle. They did that. We had a miraculous transformation, second one in my lifetime, and maybe who knows more to come. But the fact is, we can grow our economy. But what we need to do is we need to make sure that we think clearly on it. We can take the non-virtuous cycles where there are poaching, etc., and make better industries. It is, in fact, possible. But what it requires is political will, which we have, and then we need to implement. because we have plans and they're this big and there's so much paperwork, but nothing gets done.
Thank
And
you,
that
Honorable
needs
Minister.
to change. Thank you.
Thank you. Honorable members, question number 206 has been asked by the Honorable C. Wilskut to the Minister of Employment and Labour. The question is about the race classifications currently contained in the Employment Equity Act and how her department will ensure that colored minority groups are not discriminated against for employment opportunities. The Honorable Minister.
Thank you, Honorable House Chair. Thank you to the member. It is fundamental to highlight the provisions of the preamble of the Constitution, which states that South Africa belongs to all who live in it, united in our diversity. As such, we need to recognize the injustices of our painful past that unfairly treated and discriminated against the majority of our people, in particular, Black people, and Black people includes coloreds. Secondly, Section 9 of the Constitution, the Equality Clause, is explicit that everyone is equal before the law and has a right to equal protection and benefit of the law. Furthermore, no person may unfairly discriminate indirectly.
Honorable Minister, our apologies. There's Honorable Member Bartlett on the virtual platform. Just switch off the microphone of that member, please. And may I request members on the virtual platform to pay attention to what's happening in the House because you are disturbing proceedings. Please proceed, Honorable Minister.
Furthermore, no person may unfairly discriminate directly or indirectly against anyone based on one or more grounds, including race, pregnancy, marital status, family responsibility, ethnic or social origin, color, sexual orientation, age, disability, religion, HIV status, conscience, belief, political opinion, culture, language, and birth. In order to give effect to the Equality Clause in the employment sphere, the Employment Equity Act number 55 of 1998 was enacted. Consistent with Section 9 of the Constitution, Section 6, subsection 1 in the EEA prohibits any unfair discrimination directly or indirectly against any employee, including applicants for employment. Listed grounds for unfair discrimination are applicable to all employees, including applicants for employment. In fact, Section 5 of the EEA unequivocally prescribes that all employers must take steps to promote equal opportunity in the workplace by eliminating unfair discrimination in any employment policy or practice. Thirdly, of importance and relevance is that the EEA's objectives are to achieve equality in the workplace by promoting equal opportunity and fair treatment through the elimination of unfair discrimination and implementing affirmative action measures to redress the disadvantages in employment experienced by the designated groups in order to ensure the equitable representation across levels in the workforce. Designated groups are defined as Black people, namely African, colored, and Indian. Women of all racial groups are persons with disabilities, irrespective of their race and gender. Therefore, any employee from the minority groups, inclusive of the colored population, has a right to equal protection of any labor law. As such, the colored population, like any other Black people, should enjoy equal benefits of the EEA and have equal access to employment opportunities to be able to equally participate and contribute to the economic growth of our country. Thank you, Honorable Deputy House Chair.
Thank you, Honorable Minister. The first supplementary question will be asked by the Honorable Wilskut.
Thank you, Honorable House Chair. In the light of the proposed amendment of the Employment Equity Act, can the Minister provide details on how these regulations will be created, implemented, and effect, ensuring that there is no underrepresentation of all minority groups and coloreds in particular? Thank you, Honorable Chair.
Thank you, Honorable Minister.
Thank you, Honorable House Chair. As we said earlier on that we are busy with the regulations, we envisage the regulations to be completed as soonest as we have completed the consultations. And as such, the regulations are trying to make sure that we implement the Employment Equity Act Amendment Act as it was passed by this House. And it is for that reason that we are assuring this House that there will be no discrimination against colors, as I indicated earlier on, because they are classified as part of those that are protected as a black population and those that are the designated groups that have been discriminated before. And in a process of us trying to redress using the Employment Equity Act, we'll make sure through the regulations that also the colored population is protected.
The second supplementary question will be asked by the Honorable B. Maneli.
Thank you, Honorable House Chair. Thanks, Minister, for the response. In the light of the ongoing efforts to address historical imbalances in the workplace, having spoken to the regulations that you are working on, but what specific measures is the department implementing to monitor and evaluate the representation and advancement of minority groups within the broader context of employment equity? But also, how will these measures ensure a fair and inclusive approach that balances the needs of all designated groups? Thank you.
Honorable Minister.
Thank you, House Chair. I think the question by the honorable member also talks to what was raised earlier on by the honorable member on the colored population. The aim of the regulations that we are about to finalize are ensuring that the Employment Equity Amendment Act is implemented to the latter, because its sole purpose is to ensure that there is equity in employment, there is non-discrimination in terms of the race. Hence, we are saying we are coming with the regulations not to change or to amend the Employment Equity Amendment Act, but instead to be specific, to give directives and ensure that employers understand what they are expected to do as they implement the Employment Equity Amendment Act. So we'll do all in our power to ensure that there is no discrimination, in particular, looking at those previously disadvantaged races and also ensuring that there is justice for all. Thank you, now, House Chair.
Thank you. The third supplementary question will be asked by the Honorable D. van der Walt.
Thank you, House Chair. Minister, how do you intend to deal with the further exodus of skills from South Africa and the large amount of unnecessary red tape for employers caused by race-based classifications, considering that both are contributing towards further stagnation of our economy?
Honorable Minister.
Thank you, House Chair. The aims of or the objectives of the Employment Equity Act are progressive and positive. They are not to further delay or harm the economy of South Africa. I think the question that is raised, even though it is put the other way around, it is still suggesting that there may be harm that is caused by the same Employment Equity Amendment Act. And I want to reiterate, Honorable House Chair, that the aim of this act is to ensure that we address injustices of the past. Those who have been previously disadvantaged, they are given an opportunity in a manner that is intended to redress, not to harm the economy, not to also try to minimize skills or avoid the participation of those who are skilled in the economy. Nobody will be discriminated, but at the same time, we have a responsibility as a government to ensure that there is equal participation and there is fair and equitable participation in the labor market.
The last supplementary question will be asked by the Honorable Denner.
Thank you, House Chairperson. Honorable Minister, as we sit here currently today, there are more race-based laws on the law books than before 1994, according to recent research. Now, it's true, you can go and look at the
Please
female
address me.
Now, we say that we want a society that does not discriminate. We want a non-racial society, and you even quoted the Constitution, but yet we continue to make and strengthen race-based legislation. So my question to you, Honorable Minister, is, and we've seen that it doesn't really work because one of the previous questions referred to the rate of transformation in the private sector. and it's not very successful. So my question to you is, will your department take the lead in finally doing away with race-based legislation and find other methods that actually work to promote true equality? Thank you, Honorable House Chair.
Honorable Minister.
Thank you so much, House Chair. It is important to highlight that the democratic government is not clinging to racial classifications, but we must recognize that because of the apartheid and other discriminatory laws and practices based on race, there are still disparities in employment, occupation, and income within the national labor market. As such, those disparities create such pronounced disadvantages for certain categories of the people. They cannot be addressed by simple repealing discriminatory laws. So therefore, we need all labor laws, inclusive of the EAA, that were enacted to give effect to the equality and fair labor practices clauses in the Constitution to promote equity through access to equal opportunities and to eliminate unfair discrimination based on the combination of prohibited grounds, inclusive of race, gender, disability, sexual orientation, and so forth. In this regard, it will be difficult to redress the imbalances of the past merely by ignoring race and other factors which were used as determining factors to exclude the majority of our people, in particular, Black people, women, persons with disability, from equally participating in the economy of our country. So unfortunately, my department is not intending to do away with these laws because we need to redress.
Honorable members, question number 254. Order, honorable members. Question number 254 has been asked by the Honorable Bahrain to the Minister of Employment and Labour. The question is about steps taken to amend legislation or expunge regulations found to be counterproductive to job creation and the laws and regulations which have been targeted to date. The Honorable Minister.
Ngiyabonga, Sihlalo, Sihlalo. Labor legislation in South Africa gets processed through the National Economic and Development Labor Council, comprising government, business, labor, and community constituencies. Labor laws in this country are benchmarked against the International Labour Organization conventions that are there to guide all member states on key principles and fundamentals to be observed. These laws were assessed by the International Labour Organization and were found to be very flexible. Therefore, as a country, we are very fortunate that we have no mammoth task of neither amending legislation nor expunging regulations that are counterproductive to job creation. We use NETLEC to review any aspect of our laws that may be found to be having unintended consequences in the labor market to make the necessary proposals. Currently, one of the proposals that are being considered at the NETLEC is on the startups. It is a proposal that seeks to exclude startups that have been in existence for 2 years or less from the extension of collective agreements to encourage job creation. Furthermore, the proposals include removing dismissal protection for new job seekers, where employers seek to determine the compatibility of the new employee with the job, and a code of good practice, simplifying retrenchments for employers. Once the NETLEC processes are concluded, the parliamentary process will unfold, and the honorable member will also have the opportunity to engage with the bills.
Thank you, Honorable Minister. I've been informed, honorable members, that the Honorable D. van der Walt will take charge of the first question on behalf of the Honorable Bahrain in accordance with Rule 137, Sub-Rule 10, Paragraph A. I now recognize the Honorable van der Walt.
Thank you, Minister. Would the Minister please share the thought processes behind the belief that no current legislation or regulations are counterproductive to job creation?
The Honorable Minister.
Thank you, House Chair. We've got a responsibility as government to buffer both the employers and the employees as we are about ensuring that there's decent jobs and retention of such jobs. So we are taking it as our responsibility to look at those laws that may hinder progress and may cause our employees to have a risk of losing jobs because as we said, with the one that we are proposing now, if you just started as a company still trying to make profit and then you are forced to be in line or comply with the bargaining collective bargaining agreements, it may be a problem that can cause harm to the employer and also create an environment where we don't have new jobs that are created. Hence, we support that those policies that are like that, they need to be looked at and be addressed as such.
The second supplementary question will be asked by the Honorable Nonsele.
Thanks, our Chair. Thanks, our Chair. Honorable Minister, what are the potential implications of excluding the startups from the extension of collective agreements? And how might this impact job creation and the overall dynamics of the labor market?
Honorable Minister.
Wages is one of the cost drivers for businesses. By excluding startups from collective agreements within the first 2 years of their existence, this is done to give an opportunity to the startup to survive and eventually to be in a position to create job opportunities for the economy. Most startups fail within the first 2 years of their existence, and excluding them from collective agreements while in compliance with the national minimum wage can reduce their operational costs and afford them an opportunity for job creation. My department has no doubt that by lowering initial financial burden for startups can focus on growth and stability, ultimately contributing positively to the broader economy, thus contributing to the fight against challenges of unemployment, poverty, and inequalities bedeviling our labor market.
The third supplementary question will be asked by the Honorable Silepe.
Thank you very much, Chair, Honorable Minister. Right-wing political parties continue with their attack on the arsenal of progressive laws passed by Parliament to protect workers and other vulnerable sectors. These parties refer specifically to such laws as Employment Equity, Minimum Wage and Sectoral Determination, Labor Relations Act, and safety laws at workplace, claiming this inhibit economic growth and employment creation. Employers are simply asking for the right to hire and fire workers willy-nilly. The MK Party will resist any attempt to interfere with laws protecting workers and the vulnerable. Noting the slow pace of the implementation of already existing labor laws by the government, what measures are you taking to protect workers and other vulnerable sectors and increase their share of national income, particularly workers from the African, colored, and communities, not to forget the vulnerable
Thank you, Honorable Member.
that are about to be retrenched.
Thank you. Honorable Minister.
We as the Department of Employment and Labor, we are for the employer and we are for the vulnerable workers. In particular, we prioritize the rights of workers. It is for that reason that as the custodians of all the labor laws, we are hard at work in doing inspections, in ensuring that there's compliance, and we are applying consequence to those who don't comply with the laws of this country, because we believe it can't be that people would make profit at the expense of the poor workers that are being exploited. Yet we are a country that has very progressive laws to protect our employees. So we are doing work and we'll make sure that workers are protected.
The last supplementary question will be asked by the Honorable Webster.
Thank you, House Chair. Women in this country are the most highly unemployed, 5.5 million women who don't have jobs at the moment. Yet we know that in this country, female-headed households are the most prevalent kind of household structure. Yet women are the ones who bear the brunt of poverty, they're the ones who bear the brunt of unemployment. Now there's legislation that exists that should be aiding in starting to change this picture, yet we know that it has not been adequate if we look at the numbers and we look at the rate of unemployment and poverty as it pertains to women. So the question to the minister is, what legislation or what regulations are they advancing as a department in order to be able to deal with this issue of the unemployment of women in this country? Thank you.
Honorable Minister.
We have launched a program, we call it Operation Yazini, Know Your Ministry, because we believe maybe others that don't comply with the laws of these countries because they don't know what laws exist. Because we still believe Employment Equity Amendment Act is enough if then it is complied with to protect in particular women. We are disheartened to see the report, to receive the reports, in particular from the EEC, that show that the private sector in particular is so non-compliant in terms of giving opportunity to women. So we are hard at work, and we are also thankful that the laws of this country are giving us teeth as a department to enforce where we find people who are not complying with the Employment Equity Act. So we'll continue doing that, ensuring that people know as we are educating them, we enforce at the same time.
Thank you, Honorable Minister. Honorable members, question number 217 has been asked by the Honorable S.W. Davids to the Minister of Agriculture. The question is about accelerating the gains of land reform through agricultural development for the creation of small and medium-scale black farmers to ensure greater food security in the Republic. The Honorable Minister.
Thank you very much, House Chairperson, and thank you to the Honourable Member for the question. In order to accelerate the gains made through land reform, the Department, through the Cabinet, approved the National Policy on Comprehensive Producer Support and Development. And that is ensuring that there is an increase in agricultural production and food security through the provision of support to small and medium-scale farmers. The policy provides for the different categories of farmers and the different types of support that they need in order to succeed. The Department of Agriculture is implementing a grants-based producer support program, and these are designed to ensure that funding is provided in the form of infrastructure, production inputs, mechanization, training, extension support, and working capital, and furthermore ensures that market access support is also provided to beneficiaries. The funding programs in the department are: one, the Comprehensive Agricultural Support Program, CASP, Elima Letsema Program, which is a Schedule 5 conditional grant, the Land Care Program, which is also a Schedule 5 conditional grant, and the Agriculture and Agri BEE Fund. Furthermore, the Blended Finance Scheme, which I've referred to already in an answer to a previous question, is a financing instrument used to target land reform beneficiaries, amongst others, to broaden access to affordable finance in particular, and to ensure a critical mass of Black commercial producers owning and participating in the agricultural value chains. Blended finance is offered in partnership with the Land Bank, Industrial Development Corporation, and other private financial institutions. Another critical program for land reform beneficiaries is the Land Development Support Program, which is implemented in partnership with development partners such as commodity organizations and financial institutions. And this approach is within the framework of the Agriculture and Agro-Processing Master Plan that advocates for public-private partnerships for inclusive growth in agriculture and agro-processing. Organizations such as Grain South Africa, which today hosted their celebration day where they celebrate emerging and small farmers and the assistance that's been provided there, as well as assistance through the agricultural trusts, where 20% of the trust income has to be redirected towards inclusive assistance and transformation and assistance to historically disadvantaged individuals. Furthermore, the role of the department is focusing on, through the integrated agricultural marketing policy, to provide a range of agricultural marketing support services to enhance participation by all role players across the agricultural value chains. The above-mentioned support programs include the provision of marketing information, marketing skills development program, the Good Agricultural Processes Certification Program, and the Market Linkages Program. These are aimed at providing assurance to potential buyers that food produced by smallholder producers is safe for human consumption. I end again by saying it is absolutely essential if we want to see the sustainability that we have to link our small scale farmers into commercial value chains so that they are able to become sustainable, viable, and profitable as quickly as possible. Thank you.
Thank you. The first supplementary question will be asked by the Honorable Davids.
Thank you, Honorable Chair of the session. Minister, what particular plan does your department have to support small-scale black farmers to circumvent the many challenges they face? Like they don't have water on their farms, they don't have energy, they don't have access to biosecurity, they don't have any business skills, and also they are very poor. One example is the pig farm in Drakenstein. Another example is the farm in Beaufort, where the small farmers has closed the doors now because they don't have access to water, they don't have electricity, the environment is not clean, and also they have no business skills. They don't know how to make pig farming, but they don't know how to run a business. Thank you.
The Honorable Minister.
Thank you very much, House Chair, and thanks to the Honorable Davids. I've obviously already set out in some detail how the department is assisting, particularly with marketing and the like. But the Honorable Davids makes a very good point, and that is around access to water. Because in speaking to small scale farmers and even medium scale farmers, one of the big obstacles, apart from capital, is access to water. It is impossible to farm in some sectors without access to water. And we really do need to do something, and it's something I intend to take up with my counterpart, the Honourable the Minister of Water and Sanitation, to speed up water license applications for our farmers, particularly historically disadvantaged farmers. I'm busy dealing with a matter in the Eastern Cape, where there's a project that is an entirely 100% HDI project. They've been waiting for over 2 years for granting of their water license. And this is something that is holding us back in the agriculture sector quite significantly, and is going to need a lot more synergy between the Department of Agriculture and the Department of Water and Sanitation. The two go hand in hand, and you can't assist on the agriculture side if we can't get access to water licenses for our smaller scale farmers. Thank you very much.
Thank you, Honourable Minister. The second supplementary question was to be asked by the Honourable Mtwedi. I understand the Honourable Matiase. You will take charge of the question.
Chair. Minister, there are many agricultural irrigation schemes. Most of them are not functional. I'll mention just few, Honourable Minister. One in Taung, by the name of Raikoma and Ipileng. Another two in the Eastern Cape, in Krizani region, Muha irrigation scheme and Kamata. The fact that these irrigation schemes have been neglected and are lying fallow and not utilized has impacted negatively on the ability of small-scale farmers to turn their farms into productive sites, to ensure that they move from being small-scale into commercial farming. And this is a direct threat to food security and undermines the sustainable development of small-scale farmers. What are measures that are in place now that you went to China and you've seen a new Jerusalem? What experience do you bring to ensure that small-scale farmers are helped and ensure that they farm productively and sustainably? Thank you so much.
Thank you, Honourable Member. The Honourable Minister.
I thank my honourable friend for the question and say to him, I have seen the New Jerusalem. In China, I've never seen such more conspicuous capitalism in Beijing as I witnessed. So, but to say that that I think the honourable member makes the right points about these irrigation schemes. And the tragedy about these schemes is that when you go and sit with the community members there, as I have done, and they take you through the history there, and it's heartbreaking when you have older members of the community who remember the hillsides and that scheme teeming with produce, and many of them have fallen by the wayside. A number of these issues relate again to the water, but then also we need to find innovative ways to ensure that we are providing assistance to those irrigation schemes to get off the ground. I'm dealing with one of the ones I referred to was in the Eastern Cape, where we're trying to get the water license accelerated so that they can actually start farming. There's potentially 600 jobs that can be created in the one irrigation scheme alone. There's also innovations, and I should have probably mentioned it in answering the Honourable David, through the Agro Energy Fund, which looks at how we can reduce the reliance on Eskom and the high energy costs by utilizing alternative energy. And there's a very soft financing scheme that's available through the Land Bank and the department in partnership to help those irrigation schemes move on to solar and other alternative forms of energy. But obviously, the Honourable Matiasi, I know, is a passionate agrarian, and perhaps we could go and visit some of those sites together and look what interventions outside of the ones currently being made could be made to accelerate them. I believe that there is a will from the communities there to see those hillsides and pastures and fields full of produce again, to ensure that not only are they providing food security, but we're able to then also ensure that we are creating viable and sustainable and profitable agricultural projects there for communities to benefit from. Thank you.
Honourable Member, why do you want to be recognized?
Chair, can the Honourable Minister take a question?
No, it's not your chance to take questions now. Please take your seat. Familiarize yourself with the rules for questions and follow-ups. The next supplementary question will be asked by the Honourable Kebekulu.
Thank you, House Chairperson. Honourable Minister. We are all aware, Minister, that once food is transported to local retailers or supermarkets, it becomes expensive because of the inclusion of the prices of transport by farmers to the shops. My question, Chair, through you, Chairperson, to the Minister. Why is your department only focusing on this small scale and small and medium scale black farmers, ignoring the subsistence farmers who I understand would be somehow contributory to selling to the local people in reasonable prices of all what they will be producing in their fields? Why is your department simply turning a blind eye on subsistence farming as support?
Honourable Minister.
Thank you very much. I would not say the department is turning a blind eye to subsistence farmers, and they absolutely remain an integral part of the program of the department, particularly when it comes to food security. Food security is not only access to food; it's around access to on a regular basis to good quality food. And the department has a great deal of assistance to subsistence farmers to be able to assist them in production. It's also one of the reasons I've said very clearly that we do need to be looking at how we can use urban and peri-urban land far more effectively to ensure that instead of having these well-located land wasted, that we can look at doing food gardens and etc. To ensure that we improve food security. I was with a project on Women's Day this year that not only provides food security for the local community, but is able to power a soup kitchen, as well as bringing in some income for that operation by the sale of vegetables on the side. Subsistence producers and subsistence sellers are a backbone of food security, particularly in rural areas where people don't have the luxury of going to a local shopping mall or to a market. And they remain an important aspect of the department's support. As I said, the department provides support for farmers across the full range, from subsistence all the way up to the mega farmers. The type of support that they want and need is very different in each case, and the department does its best to tailor the support packages to ensure that we're meeting the needs of farmers, whether they be small or whether they be large. Agriculture should be everybody's business, and if we want to ensure that our country continues to flourish and that our food security is protected, that we are supporting across the entire range. Thank you very much, Chair.
Thank you, Honourable Minister. The last supplementary question will be asked by the Honourable Trollip.
Thank you, Chairperson. Honourable Minister, Naledi Sikakane and Tony Connie wrote an article recently entitled "Failing Farms, Billions Spent as Reformed Land Lies Fallow." In the past 30 years, the state has spent 58 billion rand acquiring 4 million hectares of arable land. That is a quarter of all arable land. The article highlights the plight of two farms, Nikopo and Umzimkulu, that were acquired as going commercial concerns. Now there's no benefit to the beneficiaries, Farms have been stripped, vandalized, and are totally unproductive. There are countless such examples. And the cycle of wanton spending with negligible returns continues and undermines rural development, land reform, development of new commercial farmers, and food security. Yesterday in the committee, we heard that half of emerging farmers who are assisted to access new markets by the NAMC can't sustain market fulfillment. How do you plan to end this to ensure commensurate returns and to meet the objectives of your department?
Honourable Minister.
Thank you very much, House Chair, and thank the Honourable Trollope for the question. After he raised the article in the Portfolio Committee meeting yesterday, I tasked my department to go and pull the article, and we're busy going through it. But certainly, the point that he makes speaks to the issue I said earlier: sustainability, viability, and profitability. It's no good the department providing somebody with seeds and ground to plant cabbages every year if indeed there's no market for those cabbages to go to. You're producing something that's got nowhere to go. And so we have to focus on sustainability and viability. The Honourable Trollope is absolutely right. I think that there's been a focus of the department, perhaps in the past, around just simply saying, well, here we go, here's a farm, here's the equipment, off you go, and then saying, well, we've ticked the box that we've now got a sustainable black commercial farming operation. That's not the case in many instances, and it requires ongoing support, but also when conceptualizing the project from the ground up, from the beginning stages, the genesis of the project, is this a sustainable project? Is this a sustainable investment of public money in this particular project? And I think that many of those projects that the Honourable Trollope has referred to have, for a variety of reasons, not worked out. There's one in the Eastern Cape, for instance, that I'm sure you're familiar with, that would never have been a successful dairy. It's the wrong area, and yet it was earmarked for dairy project, and money was spent there, but it was no ways that it was going to be a sustainable or viable project going forward. And so we need to make sure that we look at that going forward. No project should be done unless it's sustainable, viable, and profitable in the long term, because this is how we're going to ensure rural development. On the other issue around that the Honourable Trollope talks about, the viability and not being able to meet the market requirements in terms of volumes, there's a very interesting model which Theo de Jager from SAI has shared with my office around the type of cooperative systems that operate in Uganda and Tanzania, where farmers come together around in a cooperative way to pool resources, to be able to improve their buying power, but also then to be able to fulfill the production quotas of certain products going forward. And I think we need to explore those, and it's certainly something that I'm looking at very, very carefully. And obviously we'll report back to the Portfolio Committee as well on that. Thank you.
Thank you, Honourable Minister. Honourable members, the 3 hours allocated for questions for today has now expired. We will now take the question that stood over from Wednesday, the 11th of September, 2024. I now take question number 178, which has been asked by the Honourable K.A. Christie to the Minister in the Presidency. The question is about whether the Minister was informed that budget cuts would impact Statistics South Africa's work on Census 2022. I've been informed that the Honourable Deputy Minister will be answering the questions on behalf of the Minister. The Honourable Deputy Minister.
No, thank you very much, House Chairperson. I'm here today. Let me first apologize for my inaudibility last week when I was responding to questions in this individual platform. Since the fiscal year 2015-2016, budgetary constraints have begun to impact government finances. Throughout the medium-term expenditure framework process, Stats SA and the Minister have frequently discussed funding limitations with the National Treasury. In February 2020, the South African Statistics Council publicly expressed concerns regarding Stats SA funding. Better cooperation and engagement with National Treasury is in place, with multi-bilateral meetings aimed at refining and improving budget management and efficiencies. Despite being conducted in a financially constrained environment, the census was successfully completed at a significantly lower per capita cost. However, it recognizes that Financial resources are limited, and for the future planning, the organization is exploring new globally benchmarked methods and approaches that will enable the delivery of small area statistics on a more frequent basis. I thank you.
The first supplementary question will be asked by the Honorable Christie.
Honourable House Chair, thank you to the Deputy Minister for his reply, and his office did admit to knowing about the budget's shortfall of 50% needed for Census 2022. I'm thinking now of the next census and potential budgetary constraints, because where I'm from, we get things done and as well as possible, and that's what I want for the next census, that we get it done well. A 10-year census is the biggest peacetime operation a government undertakes, requiring adequate budget with skilled and trained staff and detailed planning to count every household down to the smallest village and rural community. I beg to differ that Census 2022 was successful. The inadequate budget of only 3.2 million, along with other immense limitations on the Census 2022 team, resulted in an undercount of 31% of our people, the highest ever recorded. This could distort national planning and division of revenue to provincial and local governments, undermining service delivery in our most vulnerable communities. How are we going to plan, train, and budget for an effective census, which I know is planned for 2031, to guarantee that we count at least 95% of our population, not 69%. 95% is the accepted international standard for a census. This is vital to ensure the equitable distribution of revenue and resources, such as vaccines, to local clinics. And it is most important that Stats SA have our support as a government and backing for a successful census in 2031. Thank you, Chair.
Thank you. The Honorable Deputy Minister. You're inaudible.
Oh, am I
Yes,
audible
that-
again?
yes.
There's absolutely no doubt that Census 2022 was fraught with challenges. It was supposed to be a month-long census, which resulted in, by the end of February 2022, the collection rate was so low that it could not make meaningful statistics. And that is why it was extended up to May 2022. We agreed that there were challenges, but we also agreed that this was a census of its own kind. Paperless, there were obviously challenges that ensued as a result of South Africans refusing to be counted and so on. We, however, believe in the ability of a country as large as ours to surmount the difficulties that ensued during that census. We agree that the cost of inclusive growth will result in bigger budgets, and we also agree that budget reductions have got unintended consequences, especially for Stats SA, which is supposed to produce, collect, and disseminate statistical data. I thank you.
Thank you, Honorable Deputy Minister. The second supplementary question will be asked by the Honorable Gama. From the MK Party.
Oh, you said Ghana, man.
No.
Cancer. Thank you very much, Chair. Through you, Chair. Honorable Minister, Stats SA has indicated that there's a high prevalence of enumerators being refused entry into white dwellings in Cape Town, where 60% of the population of the Western Cape resides. In particular, it is colored and African census enumerators who were routinely disallowed entry, prompting State Statistics South Africa to engage the provincial premier to undertake an unprecedented radio campaign. This still did not help much, as the Western Cape still reported the highest census undercount in the country at approximately 36%, which undermines the objectives and resources availed for a successful census. Have you considered invoking Section 18(3) of the Statistics Act number 6 of 1999, which makes it an offense, which attracts penalties for anyone obstructing the work of Statistics South Africa? How do you intend to ensure that there is societal transformation with a cohesive and dynamic national fabric going forward?
The Honorable Deputy Minister.
No, thank you very much. In the sixth administration, his parliament inter alia dealt with the amendment of the Statistics Act, Act number 6 of 1999, and delved into specific issues which mitigated against the work of our field workers. And the provisions thereof to strengthen the act would have been encapsulated in the submissions made by Parliament on the Statistics Act number 6 of 1999. The amendments and the draft bill is before the President for ascension. We hope that it will strengthen the work of the SSA and give it more teeth. I thank you.
The third supplementary question will be asked by the Honorable Ntlangwini.
Thank you, House Chair. I'll be asking the question on her behalf. Minister, there's been a gradual and consistent cutting of the budget for institutions that enhance accountability, research and aid developmental targets and work in South Africa. Has the Minister engaged the Minister of Finance on the adverse impact of budget cuts on institutions such as Stats SA, and if so, what was the response? Thank you very much.
The Honorable Deputy Minister.
These engagements are ensuing. As I said earlier on, there are bilateral meetings on a monthly basis between National Treasury and Stats SA. We've also indicated, Chairperson, that towards the Census 2022, this engagement ensued between National Treasury and the Minister, to the extent that we are also concerned about the challenges that besiege Stats SA, challenges that range from the vacancy rate, which stands at 21%. Stats SA produces 250 reports annually. These are population, social and economic statistics. We're worried about the effectiveness of Stats SA with respect to these budget cuts and the ability to discharge their constitutional mandate. The Minister is currently in discussion with the Minister of National Treasury. The results thereof will be communicated to Parliament at an appropriate time. I thank you.
The last supplementary question will be asked by the Honorable Ghana.
Chair, ungeni pala indlela le, because it's the last question for the day. Not handsome, too. So, Deputy Minister, do you believe that the Stats SA, as it currently sits, has enough budget to continue doing its work in terms of collecting and producing stats and retaining the specialist skills that it has, or that vacancy rate that you just spoke about is likely to grow? You can say, Parliament.
Honorable Deputy Minister.
Well, we are immensely perturbed, Chairperson, by the brain drain, the continued brain drain that Stats SA continues to suffer. We are losing about 100 statisticians every year, some of them poached by the private sector. And this is because of the limitations of the budget. Obviously, the private sector pays better salaries than Stats SA. We are gravely concerned with the budget cuts, as I've said, because they affect the operations of Stats SA, the inability of Stats SA to continuously modernize itself. So we are concerned. However, we are proud of the team that we have at Stats SA, and the fact that within the limited budget, they continue to produce these reports that continue to guide the country with respect to decision-making, with respect to planning, but also with respect to monitoring our own policies. I thank you.
Thank you, Honorable Deputy Minister. Honorable members, that concludes this question session. I now request you to stand and wait for the chair and the maids to leave the chamber. That concludes the business for the day and the House is adjourned.